Chapter 451, Got Engaged. Seeing Ryan running under the stage to stop them, the Weasley twins felt a little strange, because Ryan had always ended before the time had passed. There was no habit of dragging on. Well, I have something to waste you a little time now. Looking at Fred and George, who was standing in the classroom looking at himself, Lane said with a smile, "You two count me as the best in school, friends, so today there is a very important thing that you need to help witness." "A very important thing?" The twins glanced at each other with a serious expression. Then they arranged their robes with each other. "Since you say something very formal, then we are honored to witness it for you." Although the Weasley twins are usually more lively, they can even be said to be a little funny. But if you are their friend, you will know that if they really need their help, they are absolutely reliable helpers. "Thank you." Ryan waited a few minutes after he finished speaking. After the members of the book club left, he took the door and waited for Hermione to come to the stage. "What are you going to do?" Hermione stood on the platform in a doubt, and saw Ryan turn to face her and took a step forward, kneeling on one knee, holding a silver box in her left hand, and opening and holding in her right lid. A shiny ring appeared in the box. "Miss Hermione Jane Granger." Lane looked at Hermione's eyes with a loving look. "I love you. Please marry me." As a pure novice emotionally, Ryan doesn't have much gorgeous words at all. After trying to break his head, he simply used the simplest "marry me" as his proposal. Although the words were simple, the sincere and strong feelings contained in such simple words shocked Hermione's heart. As a person who has gone through many difficult adventures with Ryan, he did not even return from the world of the deceased until recently. Hermione can say that she experienced more winds and waves than most adults. General things will not make his heart fluctuate too much, but now Ryan's words make her feel that she has encountered the most special thing so far. "Even if I knew that I was a wizard for the first time, even if I killed a bad person with my own hands for the first time, even if I died and resurrected not long ago." But all of Hermione felt nothing special about herself now. In a mood, Hermione took a small step forward to take the ring and gently took Ryan's hand. "Yes, I am very willing. I am willing to be your wife and stay with you forever." Her voice is full of joy and excitement. I thought you wouldn't now." Ryan stood up and hugged Hermione. "Although I sometimes reacted a little slow, it might not be as romantic as some people. But I'm not stupid. I know what my heart is like. Although there may be some masculinity suspects, but I still feel that I should take the initiative at this time." The two people looked at each other's eyes and smiled at the same time. Just at this time there was a clapping sound. "It's so good, so good." "Yes, bless you." The Weasley brothers, who responded to the shock of the Ryan proposal scene, just started applauding desperately. Looking at the exaggerated smile on their faces, if anyone who doesn't know thinks that the twins have any happy events, ask Ryan to celebrate. The Weasley twins did not expect that Ryan would invite them both as witnesses for their marriage proposal. They felt that it would take a long time to witness this formal occasion with their age and distance, and Ryan's friends are not small. Unexpectedly, Ryan actually found them as witnesses. As Weasley twins applauded, Ryan kissed Hermione in her arms. After pulling Hermione's left hand to help her put the previously prepared ring on her, Fred and George saw this scene. Even the breathing sound was relaxed, just to not disturb this important moment. "This ring is a very beautiful silver ring with a very beautiful transparent diamond on it." Hermione vowed that she had never seen such beautiful jewelry, let alone felt an extremely sacred power from inside. As a girl, even if she is a girl who usually concentrates on learning, she doesn't like to dress her up. "I always like that kind of shiny thing in my heart." Lane smiled happily as Hermione liked the ring. He would naturally choose the best of these important things. Thor in Oak Shield carefully crafted the ring part of the ring with mithril, and then inlaid the elven sapphire that Ryan bought from the Dark Jungle. In addition, when Ryan went to the Dark Jungle, he just met Kyle Trier-Agesta. When he learned that Ryan needed to make a ring for marriage proposal, in order to thank Ryan for his previous work in expelling the darkness of Middle-earth, Kelaine Trier incorporated the light of Elendil star into this gem. So this gem is not just a beautiful engagement ring, but also a powerful magic prop. "Hermione, we will get engaged this summer vacation. Then, after graduating from 7th grade, we will get out of school and get married. From now on, I will always be with you," Lane said very seriously. Hermione looked at Ryan's face and listened to this solemn promise. His blushed blood seemed to drip out of it. She hugged Ryan again and closed her eyes slightly after raising her head slightly. Ryan naturally knew what to do at this time. After taking a deep breath, he was applauded and cheered by the Weasley twins. Kissed. Naturally, this matter cannot be concealed from other people, especially George and Fred, who are witnesses, and not restrained people. In the magic world, many pureblood families have made a marriage contract when they were very young. So Ryan and Hermione's engagement did not attract much attention, and friends all congratulated them. Some hemp wizards, such as Hermione's roommate Angela Marcus, feel that they are getting engaged a little early. However, after probably knowing that they were fighting in the Ministry of Magic, they expressed a great understanding of their choice to be engaged. "If I could have a lover who shared life and death together, I would also like to marry him immediately." This is what Angela made after listening to part of the story that happened in the ministry. Ginny envied Hermione with some envy. As a member of the pureblood family, She did not think Hermione and Ryan were too young when they were engaged. It's just that she knows the heavy burden that Harry is carrying, so it's a clever thing to never presume to face Harry. In addition, whether it was Harry, Ron or Neville all sent blessings. Even when the two met Professor McGonagall in the corridor the next afternoon, Professor McGonagall blessed them all. Of course, this is not as a school professor or dean of Gryffindor, but as a blessing as a comrade in arms in the Ministry of Magic at the time. In addition, on the day of the proposal, Ryan and Hermione both wrote to their parents overnight. This just explained Dumbledore's letter before. After the letter was sent, Ryan could only pray that everything went well. Because of the history of being single in his previous life, he had no experience dealing with his future father-in-law. Chapter 452, Rope Werewolf. The last night of the semester came. Many people have packed their packages and are preparing to go to the farewell party at the end of the semester. Ryan received a letter from his parents at this time. In the letter, they first expressed their dissatisfaction with Ryan's attitude of being engaged first and even the engagement, and then told Ryan that if this was the result of his careful consideration, they would respect his ideas. Just need to listen to them to explain. So after discussing with the Grangers and the couple, the four have now returned to London. The letter asked Ryan to call home at King's Cross Station on the day he returned to London on vacation, and then went directly to the Granger's house with Hermione to discuss the issue. When going downstairs with Hermione to attend the final banquet, Lane learned that Hermione's parents had also written a similar letter to her. He had to be grateful that British parents gave their children more freedom in this respect, making the situation much better than expected. The next day, on their way home on the Hogwarts Express train, Malfoy tried to attack Harry once and let out a bad breath for their Death Eaters family. It is a pity that they mistakenly chose a door full of DA members to do this. The result was a good lesson. Harry and Ryan and Hermione walked in hand as they bought some snacks to celebrate. They just went to fulfill the commander's accusation of maintaining order. But attentive Ginny found that both were a little nervous. "What happened to the two of you?" Ginny asked with concern, which also attracted Ron's attention. "Well, today we need to tell our parents about the decision to get engaged." Lane looked at Ginny and said, "In this case, it should be normal to be nervous." "Ah, it really makes people nervous." "But Ryan, you can't escape this kind of thing," the twins said one by one, and then they said in unison, "So, young man, please be brave, face all this." The gag of the twins made everyone in the box laugh, and then they started to do their own things. For example, reading newspapers, magazines, or playing wizard chess. The Prophet Daily Changan is about articles about how to repel Dementors, the Ministry of Magic is trying to hunt down Death Eaters, and so on, and there are some hysterical letters saying that the author had met early in the morning on a certain day to the Lord Voldemort passing by their house. War is just a precursor, and the wizards in Britain have become chaotic to this extent. It can be seen that Voldemort's jaw is very deep. It is scared like this before it is officially fought, and the next war will certainly not be so easy. After reading the Daily Prophet, Ryan reached a less optimistic conclusion in his heart. In this way, it seems that the family's trip to Tankau was very meaningful before. But what makes more sense for Ryan is that on the train he received an offset point for changing the Ministry of Magic battle and a series of other things, a total of 46 points. When the train finally stopped at King's Cross Station with smoke, Lane pulled Hermione out of the car. They obtained permission from the ticket inspector and Harry, Ron, and when they passed the magic retaining wall between platforms 9 and 10, they found that many members of the Order of the Phoenix were already waiting on the other side of the wall. There are Mad-Eyed Hamaldi in a bowler hat, next to the Tunks of Lupin who looks good, and the Weasley couple wearing their best mull clothes, and Sirius, who is holding the street Munger female therapist lover, wearing a golden light prosthetic hand on his left arm and a beaming smile. "Oh, it's great to see that you are safe." Weasley happily embraced each child. Lupin and Tunks walked over to Ryan after saying hello to Harry. "It looks like you have been pretty good lately, and you look much better than before." After seeing Lupin approaching, Ryan looked up and down and said with a smile, and Tunks ran to Hermione as soon as he came to say hello, while whispering something. "For people like us, it's very good to have a job that can earn income through labor," Lupin said in a low voice. "You know, even now Umbridge is out of business, but the law that restricts werewolves he still exists. And with your blessing, all I can do now is to stop those wicked wolves by offering a job." People joined Voldemort's side because of hunger and cold. "It sounds good." Lane nodded. "How many werewolves now in several plantations over northern Europe?" "Including me, there are 19 words, in addition to a pair of werewolves, wizards and moles. Their children were unfortunately bitten. After learning that we can treat the werewolves well, he came with a child." The wife of the witch who graduated from Booth Button was now in charge of the Manor's external communications. Her husband is an artist, so it seems that she has a lot of free time to take care of her children. Parents' love for their children is really great. After listening to Lupin's story, Ryan exclaimed. Lupin also agreed with his face. He thought that when he was a child, his parents still loved their own after they knew that they became werewolves. Experience. These werewolves worked really seriously. According to the previous report, Ryan found that this large plantation in northern Europe can already provide most of the common raw materials for joke shops, reducing the cost of the product by about 1/5. At the same time, the reliability of these werewolves has also been proved, because the plantation that Lane can plant near the Arctic Circle depends on the sunflower. So far, this secret has not been exposed by the werewolves. Even if these werewolves used to live in the magic world, they know the value of this magical plant. So, the so-called werewolf morality is completely a lie made by some racists. www.mtlnovel.com. There are indeed some werewolf morality, but it has nothing to do with their bloodline. Just like that, I'm trying to find a way to make the werewolf live like a normal person. I think I'm a little bit confused now. Lane told Lupin the good news. After falling into the curtain, his own strength further brought Ryan to hope to solve this problem. The fresh water bottle you used last time was already very useful. Lupin nodded. So there is no need to be too impatient. We have enough patience to wait. After Lupin's words were finished, Hermione and Tonks almost finished whispering and walked over shoulder by shoulder. Then Tonks said, "Okay, let's take the next step. You see, Sirius has passed." Lane was still wondering when she saw Sirius. Moody and Mr. Weasley were walking towards the Dursleys together. When they approached, they found out everyone was focusing on Mr. Weasley to warn the Dursleys not to abuse Harry. As a former wanted murderer, Sirius' deterrence is undoubtedly extremely effective, especially when he showed the iron-grey prosthetic hand in his left hand. He completely shocked Uncle Vernon. By the way, help me ask what kind of prosthetic hand Sirius hopes to have. When I'm done, write a letter to me. I can help him make a better one. After saying goodbye to everyone, Ryan quietly said to Lupin shook hands with Lupin. Lane dragged his luggage and went with Hermione to the bus outside the train station. At the same time, I prayed all the way to meet my parents when I met later. Chapter 453, Get It Done. Tonks is so pitiful, Hermione said on the bus. Did you know? Lupin has been hiding from her recently. She clearly hinted that there was no response so many times. Reminiscing himself, Hermione had a lot of sympathy for Tonks's experience. Ryan can only explain to Lupin, you must know that Lupin is old, but Tonks is still young. The most important thing is that Lupin is a werewolf. He thinks his love will bring all kinds of things to the woman. Troublesome. Hermione sighed. Reason is good, but Tonks is not a hot-blooded one. I talked to her and found that she was very comprehensive in this regard. Lupin is a bit like you in this regard. From a certain angle, I really hope others will live. It's better, but it's all too arbitrary and never considers the hopes of others. Aren't I changing it? Ryan naturally knew what to do, and it was absolutely stupid to talk back at this time. And now Lupin's attitude has softened a lot after he found a job. I think he will finally agree with Tonks. Don't you see that Tonks's spirit is not bad? Her hair just now symbolized happy pink. Hope this way. Hermione smiled. There was a bit of traffic jam on the road, so when the two of them came to Granger's house, more than an hour had passed. After opening the door, Ryan found that his parents and Granger and his wife were sitting in the restaurant drinking tea, and they should have communicated well before looking at their expressions. Next came the time when Ryan was criticized. The four parents unanimously criticized him for starting too early, and deceived her when Hermione was so young. In fact, last summer, they saw the relationship between Ryan and Hermione, and had no opinion on the relationship. I believe the two can handle these issues. But what I didn't expect was that Ryan had proposed marriage so early, and they thought it would be another few years. Today, this incident is the most manifestation of the inequality between men and women. In the next half an hour, only Ryan was accepting the chatter of both parents, while Hermione watched Ryan with rare interest in a rare embarrassment. Finally, after repeatedly confirming that Ryan and Hermione's attitude towards the engagement was very serious and made a thoughtful decision, they agreed to their plan to get engaged during the summer vacation and then get married as soon as they graduate. Naturally, Ryan, in the presence of the Grangers, promised to be good to Hermione forever. It seemed that the Grangers were quite satisfied with Lane's attitude. Next is some details, because Ryan and Hermione are both studying in the magic school, and many things are not suitable for outsiders to know. Therefore, the families of the two parties decided to simply hold a small private engagement ceremony when they lived in Danko for 1 month this summer, and they could also travel to a foreign country by the way. After a series of details about these rules were discussed, Mr. Lambert asked Ryan after returning to his home, yes, it costs money to get married, although traditionally the wedding is all paid by the woman, but I think you also need to prepare a set of houses. Of course, if you don't have enough money, we can give you the money that a mutual assistance will be saved for you, and by the way, we will give you a part of the funds. Dad, I really need your help here, but I don't need your money. Ryan looked at his parents across the table. I learned knowledge from the wizard so that I am not short of money, but that money needs to be exchanged to buy other things. Said that in the eyes of parents' consternation, Ryan pulled out several gold nuggets from the space pocket. I have a lot of gold, but the problem is that if you want to buy a house here, you can't buy it with gold. You are just wizards. Are you so rich? Miss Sally, the mother, picked up a gold ingot and put it in her hand. then carefully looked at it in front of her eyes. At the same time said in an incredible tone, "Of course not, but I learned about alchemy by chance." After that, Ryan extended a finger and tapped a tin candlestick on the table. After a series of red glowing runes flashed, the grey candlestick suddenly turned silver. "This is silver." After inspection, his father Mr. Lambert said in surprise, "Is it Nicholas Flamel? The legend is true? Can someone really turn these base metals into gold and silver?" "Few, but not without," Ryan said with a lifted chest. "I'm very proud that I'm one of them." And the greatest alchemist Nicholas Flamel and his wife had only 2 years ago passed away and lived more than 600 years. "My son really is the best." Mr. Lambert seemed very happy, but he continued, "But it's really terrible for a human to live for so long." Lane didn't expect Mr. Lambert to make a strange answer when he heard the news. After discovering that his son was looking at himself with strange eyes, Mr. Lambert said very freely, "I and your mother once said that the happiest thing in this life is to be healthy with your loved ones. And then whether or not to get sick, just die naturally. Living too long is not a very good thing." Speaking of this, Mr. Lambert seemed to wake up suddenly and said, "Of course, it is too early to say this at your age, but you will gradually realize all this." Finally, Mr. Lambert took away the gold and said he had enough ways to exchange these things into pounds. Then Ryan only had to tell him where he wanted to buy the house. In short, today's things have passed. Ryan felt that he was very fortunate enough to meet his parents and be reasonable, both for his parents and the Grangers. After staying at home for a day www.mtlnovel.com, the two are planning to go to Danko for vacation as planned. Ryan and Hermione also had great expectations for this trip to temporarily leave the suppressed atmosphere of the British magic world. In particular, the magical world of the Celestial Empire seems to be in a mist for British wizards, which makes people have great expectations. But before leaving home, his father, Mr. Lambert, solemnly told Ryan that his father, Ryan's grandfather, was a member of a traditional magic family in Tanzania who could not do magic. After refusing family support, he went directly to study abroad. After graduation, he stayed in Britain to get married and have children. And this time when Mr. Lambert went to heaven to visit his father, he told him that Ryan was a wizard. After hearing this news, he asked Mr. Lambert to tell Ryan that he was free to go back to his hometown. From his grandfather's words, Ryan knew that the attitude of the wizarding world of heaven was much better than that of British wizards. At the same time, he is also very interested in the magic of the world's heavenly dynasty. It seems that this holiday trip is very worth looking forward to, especially when Ryan thought of going to Brazil as an exchange student in his second year. Jank once said that she had met Ryan's grandfather. He also mentioned that Ryan's grandfather had floated a glass after seeing Jank's magic out of control when he was a child. Not surprised. Now it can explain why this is so. I really want to hurry up and check it out in Tankau. Lane thought of taking the car to Heathrow Airport. He also wanted to see his grandparents earlier. They treated him well when Ryan was a child, and Ryan is now capable. He naturally wants to do a good check on the bodies of the two old people so that they can have a healthy old age. Chapter 454, Hello Oriental. It's really strange. I found a lot of information about the magical world of the Heavenly Dynasty, but all the information is very vague. It can even be said that the entire Oriental magical world except Japan seems to be shrouded in a thick mist. The book says only a small number of foreign wizards are allowed to enter the Celestial Dynasty. The wizards who traveled to the Celestial Dynasty leave only a few scattered records of the Celestial Dynasty, which is seriously lacking in integrity. What does it look like? Hermione sat next to Lane in the waiting room at Heathrow Airport and said what she had done before. Incomplete records may be caused by differences in different cultural differences. It is difficult for outsiders to understand some things in that land. They estimated that they could only write some records with their own solutions. But I think we will have the opportunity to really look at the magical world of the heavens and experience the customs there. Ryan said with a smile. The relationship between his grandfather and the Eastern magical world. Hermione felt very much about having the opportunity to explore the mysterious magical world. Excitement. In addition to these preparations, Ryan took the time to move out a memory installation device in the Radiation World Academy to infuse Hermione with a language gift pack in preparation for this journey to the heaven. In his previous life, Ryan saw a variety of ways to go to heaven. There are those who have passed on a broom, those who have passed on the flying carpet, those who have been taken by Phoenix, and those who have the most powerful direct phantom shift. And the one who directly traveled by plane like an ordinary person in the past should be considered the lowest card. But fortunately, the magical world of Heavenly Dynasty that Hermione talked about along the way came into contact with them when they first set foot on the land of Heavenly Dynasty. That was when the plane landed at the Pearl Airport after they passed the customs. When passing the customs security office to the security gate, Lane felt that a very weak magic had scanned his body. He easily distinguished this scan in order to identify the magical response that passed through the security gate. Although both the levels of Ryan and Hermione can hide themselves under this inspection, the two of them are not in trouble, so they did not hinder this inspection. Ryan guessed that this inspection was to correctly identify foreign wizards who came to the heaven and mark them for easy management. Sure enough, Just after they passed the customs, 2 uniformed staff stopped them. The dress of these staff members is no different from that of the customs officers just now, but Ryan and Hermione find that they have a gold plate with a red background on their chests, which reads the Tanzhou Alchemy Federation. It is obvious that this brand can only be seen by wizards, and Ryan and their parents looked nervously at the 2 people who came, thinking what was wrong. It's okay, they are wizards of heaven. Ryan comforted several parents and stepped forward with Hermione to meet the wizards of heaven. Hello, welcome you to the Heavenly Dynasty. The 2 wizards said in fluent English. The tone is relatively friendly. You should be little wizards traveling with ordinary parents? Yes, as you can see, our parents are ordinary people. Ryan nodded. But we are not traveling. Our parents are doing business here, so we may visit this country many times in the future. As long as you don't violate the law, we welcome you to do some visits from people from other countries. The legal restrictions here are much looser than your British wizarding laws. The most important thing for you is that this is for minors. Sorcerers' spellcasting restrictions are more relaxed. Just make sure that there are no ordinary people in the company of adult wizards. Minor wizards are also allowed to release magic. But if you want to cast spells independently, you need to apply for a permit, said the short-haired young witch who looked heroic. Also, the nearest wizard business district is in the city god temple in Mingzu City. With your wand, tap one of the 2 stone lions at the entrance of the temple and you will find the entrance to that commercial street. The assessment site for the independent law enforcement license can also be exchanged for our currency. Another slightly older wizard added. Finally, I wish you a memorable journey in the Heavenly Dynasty. After that, the 2 celestial wizards said goodbye to Ryan. It looks like they are quite friendly, which is a good start. After the 2 celestial wizards left, Hermione said happily to Ryan. She really didn't expect the local wizard here to be welcoming to foreign wizards. Before I came, I thought they weren't good at dealing. That just caused some misunderstandings without knowing each other. Lane smiled. The people here are generally friendly. If an enemy invades, they will wipe out the enemy mercilessly, but they are absolutely hospitable when facing friendly visitors. I think we can feel it during the following trip. To this point, both companies are located near Kyontang, so their parents quickly returned to Kyontang by car. Because as managers and founders of emerging companies, there are many things waiting for them. Both Ryan and Hermione stayed in Pearl City to start their own trip. According to Mr. Lambert, the father of Ryan, since you have decided to be engaged, you can be regarded as an adult. I think you should be able to take care of yourself. Finally, he told Ryan to remember to join them to visit his grandparents a week later. Relax, no problem. After the parents were sent to the car with their promises, the 2 people who came to Dankou for the first time were of course going around in the most prosperous city of Dankou. It is the summer of 1996, there are not many vehicles on the street, and it is far from the momentum of the parking spaces in the streets of later generations. But it can be seen that everyone's life in this place is not bad. People walking on the street are busy, with a kind of vitality on their faces. Dress is not much worse than London. This is a place full of vitality, Ryan said to Hermione on the way to Pudong by bus. I believe that as long as 20 years, it will be more prosperous than London. Looking at the expression of "Are you kidding?" after Hermione heard this, Ryan smiled uncontrollably. No one in this era will believe how fast this land will develop in the next 20 years. After visiting the History Museum and Oriental Pearl TV Tower just completed this year, Ryan took Hermione to the city god temple early the next morning. Naturally, they went on an empty stomach. It is a pity not to taste special snacks here. The best thing about southern snacks is that the amount of each serving is not large, so you can taste more when you eat it at one time. The steamed dumplings and soup dumplings at Nangxiang steamed bread shop are indeed delicious, and each of them eats a lot. The only place that feels a little weird is when eating in the lobby. www.mtlnovel.com. Regular customers glance at them from time to time. What is wrong with the dress or something? Hermione asked strangely after discovering the surrounding conditions. Maybe because we eat a bit too much. Ryan couldn't really tell Hermione. This is because at this time, even if Pearl City doesn't have a lot of foreign affairs, especially if the woman is European, therefore, it is normal for them to spread dog food to attract others' attention before eating. After a rich breakfast, they hurried to the door of Changan Temple. Ryan clearly felt the faint traces of magic on the 2 lions at the gate of the city god temple. He tapped the base of the stone lion with the magic wand hidden in his sleeve according to the method told by the Tanzhou wizard he met at the airport yesterday. Ryan just put away her wand and saw an archway between the 2 buildings in front of him slowly squeezing out. It is the same as the home of Sirius at 12 Grimmauld Place. After the vermilion archway completely emerged between the 2 buildings, Ryan took Hermione to the archway. In the middle of the arch, there is a blue plaque with the 3 characters Songjiangja written in gold. It seems that this should be a commercial area of the Wizards of the Tang Dynasty. It feels more lively than diagonally. Hermione was a little surprised to see the bustling crowd on the street across the archway. Fortunately, the population here is 20 times that of the British. It would be strange if it was not so lively. Ryan shrugged and then took Hermione into Songjiangja. Chapter 455, Matsue Collection. Ryan has been to several wizarding business districts before, in addition to Diagon Alley in England, and Saga Street in Iceland. But the Songjiang collection of the Heavenly Dynasty is very different from them. The first point is big. Whether it is Diagon Alley or Saga Street, they are just a variety of shops around one or two streets. The Songjiang is not like this at all. It is more like an alternative imitation of the outer business district of Changan Temple. In the middle is a beautiful pool with an exquisite Duke bridge above it for easy communication. And around the pool is a variety of shops, which sell a variety of things. How does it feel? Very different from Diagon Alley. Hermione looked at the wizards on the street and said that the difference here does not mean that there are many people on the street or buildings with oriental styles on both sides of the street. The style of the streets is more biased towards the ordinary world outside. This is true whether it's tiled roads, street lights on the street, or clothes from wizards coming and going. Only the sign in front of the shop and the products inside through the glass window can prove that they are indeed on a wizard's commercial street. It may be that they stood at the intersection and looked around a little longer. A young man in a plaid suit came over and said in very fluent English, "Hello. Do you have any help? I can provide you with a guide, shopping guide and translation services. Only 20 silver coins are needed a day." "How much is it if no translation is needed?" Lane said in very standard Mandarin. "Can there be a discount for one less service?" "I don't think we need translation services." "Do you speak Mandarin?" "That would be great." "There is no less money, because it is uniformly regulated, but I can find you the best store for you to play here," the young man said too. "Okay, deal." Ryan took out 20 seko and put it in the young man's hand, but the young man he glanced at it and said he could not collect the money. "Have you not exchanged the money here?" This foreign money is not available here. So their first travel destination was Tanzhou Alchemist Bank. No matter where the financial institution is always magnificent, Tanzhou Alchemist Bank is no exception. Under the guidance of this guide named Leal, they walked across the Duke Bridge to exchange money for the tallest building opposite the pond. As they walked across the Duke Bridge, they saw several black shadows emerging from the water and quickly approached. After those black shadows approached the lake, white marks appeared on the lake behind them. "Is this?" Ryan asked, looking at the shadows that were almost as dark as torpedoes underwater. But he didn't think there would be any danger, because this is one of the biggest wizarding markets in Tanzhou, and he is not Conan, so the probability of just being in danger is not high. Not to mention that the surrounding wizards of the Tang dynasty did not react violently. "Oh, Leal said after glancing at the shadow. "They are sharks from the East China Sea. This pond has a channel leading to the East China Sea. People from sharks often bring some precious seafood and specialty products from the seabed to trade here. You are lucky today. These specialties from the ocean new products are often sold out within a short period of time. I personally recommend that you take a look after you get the money. Maybe you can find something you like. It's so beautiful. It's much better than those fishermen in the Black Lake." Just when Leal introduced Ryan to Hermione, he whispered softly. Ryan turned his gaze and found that the shadows quickly emerged from the water. As soon as the upper body emerged from the water, the colorful fish tails became human feet. Under the leadership of a middle-aged female shark, the 6 sharks walked out along the stone steps that didn't enter the pool. The appearance of these sharks is indeed much more beautiful than those of the murlocs in the Black Lake. It looks like a slightly taller human, with a beautiful appearance and tall body. The only difference from humans is that the skin is more supple and fairer. At the same time, they can see that in short-sleeved shorts, they have some colored scales on their joints and forehead, and their ears are similar to fins. However, these racial characteristics did not reduce their face value, but made them look more beautiful. "Okay, here we are." Just across the Duke Bridge is a small square with a large flower bed in the middle. Bypassing the flower bed is the building of the Tanzhou Alchemist Bank. This is a 5-story building, which stands out from the surrounding low-rise shops. And beside the gate with vermilion and gold nails, a hairy figure stood. "Hey, Ryan, look. They are pandas." Hermione shook Ryan's arm with some excitement, and stood beside the bank door as a welcome. "Only a panda standing upright in a beautiful tuxedo. Well, it's a little different. You can call them Pandarin." "Because Hermione uses Mandarin," Leal whispered after hearing what Hermione said. "It should be called Payao according to our name, but they grew up with the earliest wizards of the heaven, and they are regarded as the most non-human allies of the wizards here. The Pandarin's nature is kind, loyal and friendly, but there is one thing it's important to remember, that they love wealth very much. Although they don't use any evil means to obtain wealth, they should remember to be optimistic about their wallets when they sell to you later. Otherwise it's very easy a lot of so-called financial investment products that are not much use come out." "Okay, this is a little different from what I imagined." When he entered the door, he looked at the black and white bare-faced Ryan, who smiled with a smile on the panda's door. "It's a real bear." After entering the door is a tall wooden structure hall. On the roof is an extremely gorgeous painted gold algae well. In addition to the beautiful appearance, Lane also felt that the algae well was actually a powerful magic circle, and the bead spit out from the middle of the algae well was the array of eyes. Walls are lined with rows of wrought iron chairs. When the wizards enter the door, they will press a button on a brass machine next to it, and the machine will spit out a note marked with Arabic numerals. Then they will wait in the chair. Apart from the door, all three sides of the hall are long counters with thick transparent glass. Every once in a while a panda person sits behind the counter. Some are weighing gold with a small steel yard, and some are identifying gems. Others are there to receive a customer who came to handle the business. They were lined up in front of the corresponding Pandaran counter soon after receiving the number. Don't look at the Pandaran size, but the voice of the voice is a baby voice with a milk sound. It sounds very cute, but when faced with gold coins, they are not so cute. After redeeming 500 gallons, the Pandaran in front of Lane recommended some kind of financial fund. He declined many times before getting out of the passionate Pandaran. When walked out of the bank gate, Ryan began to measure the currency withdrawn. The currency of the Wizard of Heaven is divided into 4 kinds of gold, silver, bronze and bronze. The ratio between them is 1:10, which is more humane than the currency exchange of British wizards. Bronze coins have the lowest value, each of which is equivalent to a dime of ordinary people's currency, and the highest value of gold coins is equivalent to 100 yuan. In order to maintain this ratio, the size of gold coins to bronze coins is increasing. The largest bronze coin is as big as a beer bottle cap and is made very thin. But the smallest gold coin is only a little bigger than a shirt button. However, these currencies are beautifully cast regardless of size. There is a shallow square depression in the center of the currency, which should be a commemoration of the ancient round copper coins with square holes. On the front, the 2 characters of Tongbao are written on both sides of the square hole, and the symbol of the sun and the moon is erected on the back. The most interesting thing is that the wizard currency can be exchanged for RMB in an unlimited amount, but the reverse is strictly restricted. In the market outside, only magic-related goods must use wizard currency, and many daily necessities can even be paid directly in RMB, probably because the magic world of the dynasty was not as closed as the British magic world. With a pack of money www.mplnovel.com Lane they started their shopping journey. The first stop is the Donghai boutique of those sharks people. In the store, Lane bought a lot of sharks. On the one hand, because this textile is indeed beautiful, on the other hand, Lane found that this textile is actually an alchemical material, can be used to refine clothing with magic effects. Ryan asked the croaker salesman if he could order for a long time after buying, because he wanted to buy some raw materials for his store. Unfortunately, the production of these things is random, and cannot guarantee a fixed supply. So Ryan can only regret to give up this idea. Lane, we are here to travel. Could you put your work aside for now? After Ryan finished talking about things, Hermione said a little unhappy. Sometimes there is a time for rest. Sorry, this is not my right. Ryan admitted that he was doing something wrong now. The next time they took a good tour of the entire Songjiang collection, tasted a variety of delicious special snacks, and bought a lot of souvenirs for friends. At this time, we can see the importance of finding a good guide. With the help of Leal, they can buy the best things at the most suitable price. For example, some special magic spices, some wooden signs with seal characters that have certain damage to evil creatures, and some handicrafts with local characteristics. Finally, they spent 20 minutes to obtain the local law enforcement permission. In short, this day was a rewarding day, and it also started a good start for Ryan's trip to heaven. Chapter 456, Land of Peach Blossoms. Ryan and Hermione visited a lot of good places in the next week. There were ordinary people and some were exclusive to wizards. The reason why they can visit so many scenic spots in a short time is due to the cloud road system of the heaven. Yanlu is similar to the European flyway network, except that it does not require a fireplace. The calm water in any container drawn with a magic circle can be used as an entrance. The largest one can be a lake, while the smaller one can be a wash basin or wash basin at home. When you use it, just fill the container with water, wait for the water surface that is larger than the size of the slab, put your hand in it and recite the place name, and finally add a rush to the law to go to the place you want to go. This week, whether it is Taiyou Lake, Lushan Mountain, Huangshan Mountain or West Lake, has opened their eyes, and the natural and cultural scenery inside makes them linger. And the one that impressed them the most was the travel spot they belonged to the wizards on the last day, Wuling Yuan. This Wuling Yuan is different from the Wuling Yuan Zhangjiaji scenic spot on the other side of the ordinary people. It is a large valley protected by natural magic fans. Inside there is a small town that belongs purely to the magic world of the dynasty and a lot of magical creatures. According to the map I bought on Songjiangjai, the two came to the entrance of the town. This is just a very ordinary stream in a mediocre valley. If there is no magic, you can only see a stream flowing out of the valley, but the wizards can see that the stream has a fork after entering the valley. Traced up the tributary of the stream that only the wizard could see, and it didn't take long to seem to cross an invisible boundary, and a beautiful peach blossom forest suddenly appeared in front of him. The magic is that even if it is a hot summer day, the temperature here is still as pleasant as spring. The peach blossoms full of trees are still in full bloom. There are a few wizards scattered under the tree reading books, games or picnics. A breeze blew, and the pink petals on the ground were blown up, floating in the air with the petals blown off the tree. Turn the peach blossom forest into a pink world like a fairy tale. It's like a dream, Hermione said gently looking at the scenery in front of her. Thank you, but before she finished speaking, Ryan blocked her mouth. After a kiss for a while, they smiled at each other. Afterwards, Rose Crystal and Xiaoqing took photos of them with a camera. In the previous days, Rose Crystal and her sisters went to Paris and Versailles for a good tour together in the world of the Rose Girl, and then enjoyed a few days of party time. Fortunately, after the party ended, she caught up with the last stop of Ryan's trip, Wuling Yuan. After playing enough in this peach blossom forest, they continued to follow the stream. At this time Xiaoqing turned himself into a back basket. Then Rose Crystal drilled in and coquettishly let Ryan carry her on her back. Ryan shook his head with a smile, and then carried the rose crystal basket on his back. There is a mountain in the birthplace of the stream. There is a small cave on the mountain. The stone walls beside the cave are inscribed with the 3 large characters of Wuling Yuan. Ryan, they could only line up to get into this exit. Fortunately, the hole was just a little bit narrow at the beginning, and after a few dozen steps, it became bright and wide. This is presented in front of him is a quaint town and flat fields. In the distance you can see a lake and the woods by the lake. Lin used all the water to get a mountain, and the mountain had a small mouth, as if there was light. He would leave the boat and enter from the mouth. It was very narrow at the beginning, and it was only accessible to people. Ryan began to recite the famous peach blossoms with feeling. Unlike the previous life, which was just a story, the source of peach blossoms in this world really exists. This place, now called Wuling Yuan, is the peach blossom source in the article. Had said before that the surrounding environment formed a mysterious lock beside this huge valley. In addition to the natural fan lock, the wizards found here also set up large and small magic defenses here. However, this was not the case more than 1,000 years ago. At that time, the valley only relied on natural fan locks, so there was really an ordinary fisherman who entered this place when the fan locks were weakened due to astrological changes. Take it out. Unfortunately, after the fisherman left, the wizards who lived in the valley used magic circles to make up for these defects, so no matter whether they were Zhu or Nanzi Liuziji, they could no longer find this place. Later, this story was known to Tao Yuanming, and then the famous peach blossoms was written just like another world. What did you just read? Hermione asked curiously on the edge. Although she is now learning Chinese, this kind of classical Chinese is still difficult for her to understand. Oh, this is a verse written by an ancient poet more than 1,000 years ago. Lane turned and explained. After he explained the story about the story of Peach Blossom, the two also happened to follow the stone road to the entrance of the town. Unlike the previous Songjiang collection, many people in the town wore modern costumes that blended the style of Hanfu, and even a few wizards were wearing Hanfu directly. Moreover, walking on the street is not just a wizard. For example, Ryan saw a young woman with fox ears and tails walking across the street holding a paper umbrella. Hello, I was born in the UK. This time I came back with my fiancé to take a look. I just saw a lot of people with animal ears or leaves and flowers on the street. Can you tell us what this is? Custom? Ryan asked the shop owner after buying a few pieces of glutinous rice cakes. This is not a custom. The middle-aged uncle with a big beard looked very talkative, and he said while wrapping the mochi with a leaf in his hand. They are not human. Isn't it human? Hermione stopped nibbling, because in the British magic world, non-human intelligent creatures were marginalized and discriminated against. She had never seen any other creature walking down the street in diagonally. So she suddenly became excited after hearing that the guys were not human. Yes, not humans. The boss repeated it again. Many foreign tourists like you feel incredible about us. Even when I met a fellow countryman more than 10 years ago, we thought that we had lost our decentness as an alchemist. At this time, Hermione whispered, it sounds like so-called pure blood, but we always believe that as long as they abide by our laws, they are willing to accept the same discipline. There is no reason why they should not be given the same rights as us. Relax, boss, we are not that kind of person, Lane said, and Hermione nodded vigorously. But we also need to admit that in other places, some people always think that their lineage is superior. Bloodline. The boss let out a disdainful grunt with his nose. Only animals like pigs, dogs, horses are noble because of their bloodlines. How can humans be noble because of this? The boss's words made Ryan and Hermione laugh together. This is the most interesting rebuttal they have heard about the theory of pure blood supremacy. The shop owner also saw that the two of them were not of the pedigree, so they explained, just those who are unified and called mountain ghosts are a kind of natural elves. It's a creature like Meiwa. Ryan quickly explained to Hermione in English. From the boss they learned that part of the mountain ghost has animal power and another part has plant power, as well as their own special spells. Most importantly, they can marry humans. But just as the boss was frivolous and bragging about the appearance of the mountain ghost, his fat dun wife sneaked up from behind and grabbed his ear. Don't think I don't know that you are staring at the boss lady of the ghost all the time at the end of the street restaurant. www.mtlnovel.com. Hurry up and go to eat the rice cakes. Not allowed to be lazy here. Watching the sturdy boss lady pull the boss to the kitchen, Ryan and Hermione also left quickly. I just thought I saw Mrs. Weasley after walking down the street. Hermione looked back and said that the rice cake shop said. This is also a way of getting along, that uncle's magic level is much stronger than his wife. His wife is just an ordinary person who can't magic, Lane said with a smile. In addition to the beautiful mountain ghosts, Ryan and they met a large human over 3 meters high on the street. The boss of the potion shop told them that they were the Kuafu clan, similar to Western giants. However, neither the defense power nor the strength of magic is as great as the Western giants. Their only advantage is that their IQ and character are not much different from humans, but they are only stubborn. After purchasing what they wanted in the store, the two went to the surrounding reserve. I saw the long right of the 4-eared macaque. You were with colorful hair and long tails, and the best luck was when they passed a flowering bamboo forest. They saw a pheasant-like appearance, but with colorful the pattern in the long-tailed phoenix. If you look closely, you can see that the bird's abdomen and wings naturally formed ancient seal lines. What kind of bird is this? Hermione asked Phoenix, and in her impression Phoenix should be the fiery red bird raised by Professor Dumbledore, so she didn't recognize what was in front of her. This is the Phoenix of the East. Ryan felt lucky today. Chapter 457, Unexpected Gift. Phoenix? Hermione asked strangely. Isn't Phoenix supposed to be a big bird with golden feathers like fox? I read this in the book. Where is the magical animal? No, this is a translation problem, Lane whispered, fearing to startle the phoenix standing on the bamboo and eating bamboo rice. Phoenix is called the undead bird in the Celestial dynasty. It first came from ancient Egypt. The phoenix in front of us is at least stronger in magical power than the undead bird in Dumbledore. He pointed to Phoenix to show Hermione. Look, the pattern on its head is the shape of the word the pattern on the wings is the shape of the word ye, and the pattern on the back is the shape of the word li. The pattern on the chest is in the shape of the word benevolence, and the pattern on the abdomen is in the shape of the word letter. These words represent the most important moral concept of the Tankau people. These words on the phoenix body mean that it has a part of humanity. The power of the rule is equivalent to the power of faith that we say. It's incredible, but it's just an extraordinary animal. How do you master these complicated rules? Now Hermione, who has started to slowly explore the rules, knows what this power represents. She can't believe some kind of power. Magic animals can understand these complicated things. For example, the phoenix of Dumbledore is at most equivalent to the wisdom of human teenage children. Certainly this complex research cannot be completed. And this is already the smartest kind of magical animal you have ever seen. Hey, you two young people, I don't think you humans can be much smarter than other animals. Ryan didn't have time to answer, and heard a very clear voice from the depths of his mind, giving a spring rain the feeling of seed sprouting after water drops on the ground. But this voice shocked him abruptly. There should not be too many people and creatures who can directly convey the message to his heart through the power of his heart, but not to disturb himself. Even Dumbledore will have to spend some effort to achieve it. Lane's first reaction was to look at the phoenix who was holding a bamboo and stretched his neck to the bamboo in front of him. As a result, he immediately heard another sentence. Your boy is not too slow to react, and still a little smart. Are you? Ryan asked cautiously. The phoenix in front of him had shown its power. No matter what it was, this power was already worthy of respect. You can call me Feng Ling, Phoenix said at this time that he flew to a bamboo crossing in front of them. Don't be nervous, I am calling you just for curiosity. Not many foreigners have been seen in this place. Even if I've seen them here for more than 2,000 years, none of them has more than double digits. The last time I saw you it's been a few decades ago when the female doll next to him looked like a foreigner. Is there often Europeans like me here? This sentence raised Hermione's interest. No, not very often. The general foreign alchemists only step into this land when they have something. Feng Ling said, I saw the man because of other things. The Wu that the poacher took away was returned to us, so he brought his partner over. I also learned a greeting from them. Let me think about it. Yes, this is it. After thinking of that sentence, Feng Wang raised a wing to them and said, it's too old to touch you. It should be said like this. Ha, I know my brain is easy to use. I will remember it for so many years. Kiwu. Ryan suddenly thought of a man. He pulled out a Where is the magical animal from the space bag, and then asked the black and white photo of the author on the title page when he was young. Well, is this the same person? It's him. Phoenix looked at the book and said, this young man feels good to me. I also chatted with him. Do you know how he is going? Newt Scamander, who later became a great scholar of magical zoology, is now retired. He lives on his own estate in Dorset with his wife's pet. And he is not young at all now. Almost 100 years old. He wrote our first grade textbooks. Oh, I forgot a lot of things when I was older. I thought he might be very powerful in the future. It seems that my eyesight is good. Feng Ling's voice became pleasant. Oh, what are you doing here? I remember that there are very few foreigners in this place. We came here for the engagement ceremony, plus a holiday trip. In addition, I also visited my family, Lane said, holding Hermione's hand. "Oh, love, this is beautiful," Feng Ling said. "Although I just met you, I still need to tell you that strong power is the basis for doing things, and killing is sometimes an inevitable means. But please be sure to remember the initial choice in your heart, and don't lose your eyes by power and blood. I have seen too many tragedies in my life that can't hold my heart. Love and responsibility are the only ones. Anchor point that can make people come out of lost. Thank you for your teachings." Ryan bowed to Phoenix. He believed that the warning issued by a phoenix that had lived for 2,000 years must be targeted. After thinking carefully, Ryan also felt that he seemed to have been too inclined to eliminate the flesh recently. He stood there and began to reflect on whether he had some ideas and practices that were too extreme before he reflected. "It's good if you can get what you want. I think you will be a great alchemist in the future. Now let me give you a little gift. I wish you to make your own sky in a foreign country. Of course, congratulations on finding it." The end of his own soul. Feng Ling watched as Ryan thoughtfully flew up, and then began to sing in ancient elegant language. Feng Zai returns to his hometown and travels around the world to seek his phoenix. He has no chance to meet him. He Wu Jin Zai Sheng Si Tang ! Feng Ling sang songs while flying in the air. After singing a song, the golden light flashed. The elegant and beautiful figure disappeared from the bamboo forest, leaving only some natural echoes echoing around. Hermione exhaled gently. Even if Feng Ling had just tried his best to calm down his breath. However, even if the magic accumulated over 2,000 years is only unconsciously leaked, it is too much pressure for Hermione, who is just beginning to contact the regular road. www.mplnovel.com. Is this the essence of the Wizards of the Heavenly Dynasty? Hermione said in disbelief. More than 2,000 years old. The guy with the longest life I heard before was the snake monster you told me under the schoolgirl's toilet. I feel that the pressure it puts on me is a little bit lighter than the previous death. An independent magic society with thousands of years of civilization that has not been passed down. You don't think they didn't expand outward because they are weak? Not to mention that the phoenix in front of us should be a little worse than the gods. Ryan looked, said Hermione in surprise. "Okay, I won't say this now. We can see what gift the beast phoenix sent us." After feeling the body slightly, Ryan and they opened their sleeves at the same time. A very delicate golden phoenix sashimi appeared on their forearms. Probed the sashimi a little bit with magic power, they found that the sashimi can allow two people to summon the other party to each other when they agree in a world, as long as they agree. In addition to this most important function, it also allows them to communicate with each other. I really should thank that Feng Ling. Ryan felt a little inexplicable about this kind of gift. But think about that phoenix is more than 2,000 years old. It may be that in his eyes, this gift is really just looking at the juniors just gave me a little insignificant benefit. But for Ryan and Hermione, this is the best gift they have ever received from the visit to heaven. Chapter 458, Homecoming. After this full-fledged tour of Taoyuan, Ryan and his parents met in Kyontang, but according to grandfather Ryan's statement, it may take some time to get engaged to the engagement ceremony. So this time the four parents are busy for his own work. He hurried over with two younger generations, and by the way, he could look at the book collection at home. Our family in Changan is also a family of alchemists with a history of 500 or 600 years, Ryan's grandfather said proudly on the plane. Our family has been engaged in the cultivation of various magic plants for hundreds of years, and now they provide 1/3 of the raw materials of herbal magic potions in the north of the sky. Heavenly magic family. This must be worth looking forward to, Hermione said happily through the phoenix seal on her arm. At least in the UK, I didn't have a chance to visit those wizard family estates, let alone you invited my parents. After the plane landed, they stayed in the People's Building for one night. As the hometown of Ryan's two lifetimes, Changan in the mid-1990s did not flourish 20 years later. In the early morning, everyone was still woken by the ringing bells on the street. The motorway is very empty against the background of bicycles. Although private vehicles have appeared at this time, the cars on the street are still scattered. Riding a rented old jeep, everyone bumped all the way to the south. After more than an hour, they saw a magnificent endless mountain range appearing in front of them. We're almost there. Ryan's grandfather sitting in the co-pilot position looked at kindling in front, and it stopped after driving for more than half an hour. Hermione got out of the car and found a beautiful small village in the valley below the shoulder of the road. The village was smoky, and even saw a man working with a cow in the field of the river beach. Here is here, but I don't think this is any different from a normal village. Hermione looked at the village and said, of course no difference. Lane's grandfather came up from behind. In the Heavenly Dynasty, there was no Western-style traditional wizardess manor where pure alchemists lived. Here, traditional alchemists are used to living in the same area as people related to blood. If it has a long history, it will form one by one village where people live together. It's incredible. Hermione looked at the village in the mountain valley with excitement. This is a completely different world. After entering the village, under the guidance of his grandfather, Ryan began to greet many villagers. It was at this time that Ryan found himself in the middle position in the village. The number of people of your own age who are 2 generations older than yourself and twice as small as you is basically the same. Finally they came to the big house that was the village committee. The house is unpretentious, and the only difference compared with other houses in the village is that the walls of this house are large brick buildings made of blue bricks, not the adobe tiles like most houses in the village. "What are we doing here?" Ryan asked curiously. Because the layout of the house is no different from most of the local village committee offices in this era. The house has a coffee-colored desk near the window, and a large iron lock locks 2 drawers. A few filing bags and a few books are placed on the desk, and there is a small cabinet of the same color behind the chair. In addition, the house was empty. After entering the door, I discovered that there was a wooden stand with a wash basin in the visual dead zone before the door, and a small pile of agricultural tools behind the door. Don't worry, Ryan's grandfather said. At this time Ryan looked anxious. "You have to learn to wait so that you can work slowly. If you work slowly." After he finished, he took a from the corner of the wall and pressed it against a stamp on the wall. The back wall of the house immediately resembled the wall of the broken cauldron bar. The bricks began to move round with a depression as the core. A small hole appeared in the wall first, and then slowly expanded into a brick arch for 2 people to pass side by side. "Come in," Ryan's grandfather greeted. "It's a family ancestral hall, and your engagement ceremony is held here." The elders helped count the days, and it's a good day after 21 days, which is in line with your birthday. Both of you live in the east during this time. Inside the compartment. Come out to eat when you eat at noon. When your uncle comes in the afternoon, let him take you to Changan, which is the core area of the altar of the Heavenly Dynasty. Oh, you take this. Grandfather handed Ryan a wooden sign when he saw Ryan and Hermione going to the luggage room. This is an identity card. You can go to the back to read, but U.S. little daughter-in-law is temporarily unable to enter. These restrictions must be added after the engagement ceremony to add her name to the genealogy. Lane's name was recorded in the genealogy when he was adopted as a child. That's why even if he only treats his children, he is no different from his own child. Farewell to his grandfather, who was anxious to go to the village to chat with old friends. Ryan entered the room arranged for him. The decoration here is very similar to the style of the hotel outside, except that whether it is 2 wooden beds or a coffee table stool, it looks like it is old and beautifully made. But surprisingly, a 12-inch-old TV was actually placed on the table. Of course, this old TV refers to the more than 40-inch rear projection color TV set in Ryan's last life. Put in this era, this small color TV can be regarded as a fashionable product. What is even more shocking is that there can be a color TV in such a place. A button is installed on the side of the TV. Turn left to see the TV programs of Ordinary People, and turn right to see the TV programs of Alchemist TV station. However, in this era, in addition to news, lectures by alchemists were also interspersed with popular science programs and movie videos of ordinary people. There is no such good thing in Britain, Hermione said, a little bit depressed after watching the TV show. The living conditions of the Mus in Britain are better and more advanced than here. But the life of the wizards seems to have stayed 100 years ago. The only thing I find strange is where did the electricity from the wizards of the heaven come from? As far as I know, they have mastered the method of generating electricity through magic. www.mtlnovel.com. Lane said, "This is much less difficult to transform TV sets. I think the only reason why there is no sorcerer TV station in the UK is because people less demand for TV sets. Whether it is to open a wizard TV station or a TV set sold to a wizard will only lose money. You have to know that the magic radio used in Hogwarts cannot be made technically. It is impossible to make a TV that can function normally in the magic world. Then the only possibility in the British wizarding world is that there is no such thing." After going out to the village for lunch, Lane and Hermione visited the ancestral hall together. The main room with the cards and other things is usually closed, so they just looked at the layout outside. In addition to being able to see a lot of magical defenses, many houses can't even see what they are used for. Originally planned to take a break after the visit, but it was at this time that Ryan's grandfather walked in with an old man who looked like her. "Our Liang has grown to such a large size. You used to look at your photos before you are still a little guy without your grandfather's waist height. Now you are going to get married," Lane's uncle said. Uncle is the younger brother of Ryan's grandfather. Unlike the grandfather who can't do magic, his talent in magic is very good. After graduating from Kunlun College, he went to the Danko Alchemist Academy in Changan for 3 years, and then stayed at the school to teach. According to the previous plan, Ryan will follow him in the magical world of heaven during the time before their engagement date. "Are you ready?" Lane's uncle is a neat person. "If we are ready, let's go." Chapter 459, Changan, the core of the magic world of heaven. Ryan's uncle brought Ryan and Hermione here through Yunlu. Before setting off, Ryan released the rose crystal. "How can I miss the little guy when I travel?" But what I did not expect was that in the past 2 days, Teacher Liuozhen and Alice were invited to visit the Palace of Versailles. Therefore, the little puppets of Teacher Liuozhen ran out when they heard that Ryan was going to take the rose crystal to see the most prosperous place in the magic world of heaven. Therefore, besides the 3 of them, There are 8 puppets looking happily standing outside Changan Fountain. I don't think your level of production staff is low. Uncle looked at the well-worn puppets around the well in the cubicle and curiously smiled while touching their beards. I think I can introduce you to Professor Yan Yan after a while. She is a descendant of Teacher Yan, and after seeing these dolls, she will definitely be willing to come up with some valuable things to communicate with you. After greeting these lively and active little guys, they walked out of the compartment. Then walk out along a brick avenue. There is a water well in each compartment, and when you go out, you can occasionally see the sorcerer turning into a white mist immersed in the water or a white mist emerging from the water to become a wizard. In short, the busy place here is like the huge fireplace in the hall of the Ministry of Magic at work, and there is no free time. Walked out of this yard as a transportation hub in Changan, and an antique city appeared in front of them. The city is located in a huge valley surrounded by mountains. The tall city walls surround the city, and you can see the simple style of houses lined up in their sight. This is the heart of the Oriental alchemist, Uncle Gong said proudly. The resident population is 15,000, and it is the only city in the world that belongs to the magicians. The city is divided into 18 squares. If you are familiar with history, you can think of this as Changan City in the Tang Dynasty, a miniature version. Since its expansion more than 1,000 years ago, the overall layout of the city has remained unchanged. Miracle. Ryan looked at the city for a while and was shocked for a while before finally expressing his inner feelings with the word miracle. Under Uncle's leadership, they walked along Suzaku Street. On both sides of the road are various shops, workshops, and hotels and residences. However, Ryan also found that it is still full of traces of the times, such as the lampposts on both sides of the road, and some of the self-transformed magic horns of some shops. There are not many people coming and going on the street. It can be seen that many people come from other places to go shopping or shopping in the city. After carefully observing the wizards of the Celestial Empire, Lane's comprehensive impression of the previous few days raised his own question: why do most of the wizards I see in the UK wear wizard robes, and the alchemists on the celestial side wear ordinary people outside almost exactly the same? This is because of a reform more than 100 years ago, Uncle Gong said. At that time, the alchemist world of the Heavenly Dynasty decided to develop itself well after a long war that lasted hundreds of years with the dead, but at that time we accept everything except the modern Alchemist Academy is still ancient. After carefully observing the world of ordinary people outside, alchemist leaders decided to learn from ordinary people. So we secretly sent a delegation to the world's most advanced 100 years ago in Europe to investigate. After looking at the 2 young people who listened carefully, the uncle went on to say, after arriving in the UK, the delegation was attracted to a completely different world. The roaring machine made them feel like a magical skill. Power is bursting. Not to mention the fact that they saw trains, newspapers, electric lights, flush toilets and a series of other things in the British magic world at that time. Compared with them, we seemed to be barbarians. After the delegation returned, the alchemists of the Heaven Dynasty thought that it was because he is good at learning the knowledge of ordinary people, so the British magic world ranks first in Europe. Since then, we have also started an innovation called Civilization, which takes the skills as the core and comprehensively absorbs the knowledge in the world of ordinary people. After listening to these words, Hermione leaned over to Ryan and whispered, the British magic world in the eyes of the wizards of the heavens is completely different from the real British magic world. They obviously have a deviation in their understanding, but I think these deviations are pretty good. When Ryan said this, he saw a magically modified 3-jumper loaded with piles of high goods drove past the motorway in the middle of the road. It's too stupid to make progress on the world of ordinary people by simply pretending not to see it. Of course, the way of instigating ordinary people's wars like Grindelwald to prevent ordinary people from developing seems more stupid now because of war. It is a catalyst for technological development. Okay, here we are. The uncle interrupted the 2 people's whispering words in front of him. And now an antique door appeared in front of him. The blue plaque with gold trim reads Danzhou Alchemist Academy. It may not be the same as your English school system. After the 7-year graduates from Julie, Penglai or Kunlun, the students of the Heavenly Dynasty. Those alchemists who are interested in studying the technique in their studies can pass the exam later. Complete their further study in 3 years. And unlike the traditional way of inheriting family model knowledge 100 years ago, as long as you can pass the college exam and make enough contributions to the Alchemist Academy and the magic world, then you can be here gain the top skill knowledge in the entire Far East. Our ordinary alchemists born in the past 100 years can account for more than 60% because we have liberated knowledge, which has greatly accelerated our research on spells in the past 100 years. Led them to enter the door and said, I am here as a professor of extraordinary plants. Look, in front of my laboratory and teaching greenhouse. This is really big. Ryan saw that the greenhouse in front of him was several times larger than Hogwarts. The place where I go to school now has a greenhouse that is not as big as this. Uncle Gong stood there awkwardly. I mean, I work here. The greenhouse here belongs to the school. Only the small greenhouse next to it belongs to me. That treatment is not bad. I remember us prouds have to work what they want to study. Hermione looked at the small greenhouse of about 100 square meters belonging to Uncle Ryan with some envy. I am going to study now. The two of you can just stroll around. If you want to come to school, you need to pass an exam, but there is a lot of knowledge here that is open to the outside world. If you want to study here, you don't just go through the exam to learn away. If you want to gain knowledge, you can use your knowledge, materials and even labor to get points in school. With these points, you can go to the library to exchange for the knowledge you want, and even ask a free professor to explain to you www.novel.com. Uncle took them to the school scholar's reception desk and told him to leave for a long time, and the puppets followed him to the campus. Everyone needs a gold coin for the audit card, but the points inside need to use knowledge or valuable magic items in exchange. At the same time, even if there are more points for outsiders, if you want to see some knowledge, you still need to approve. There are all books that can only be read in the library, and are not allowed to be taken away. But even so harsh, Hermione is still envious of the academic atmosphere here, especially after she has read the list of materials that can be exchanged. Think about Hogwarts. There are no enough valuable books in the general area of the library, and the restricted area is extremely strict. Each pureblood family holds their secrets firmly and there is no spirit of sharing at all. Other things are not easy to say. At least Anka's approach to knowledge can avoid a lot of meaningless repetitive research, and at the same time has a great benefit in promoting magic research. So I said everything must start with education. Lane smiled. Okay, now let's go get points first. Lin used to exchange points for a lot of seeds he got in the world of Plants vs. Zombies and a part of the forging technology from the Lord of the Rings world elves. These things are enough for him to exchange more than 1,000 points to exchange all the knowledge they want. Fundamentals of Runes, Shanhai Jing 174th edition, Beis to 96th edition, Basic Techniques. With a lot of books, Ryan and Hermione started reading in the reading room of the big library stand-up. Chapter 460, Magical Learning. The Wizards of the Heavens called themselves alchemists, and they used magic bracelets to assist in the gesture casting. The bracelet can be seen as a wand bent into a ring, according to the records in the book. In the history, the alchemists of the Zhao dynasty had various casting tools. However, with the passage of time, after balancing the two requirements of simplicity and magic power, the heavenly alchemists finally chose the bracelet as their casting tool. If you want to talk about the characteristics, the biggest spell-making feature of the celestial alchemists is the use of cast materials. For example, various powdery liquid magic herbs, such as pre-prepared runes or runes with runes. The disadvantage of this method of casting is naturally that the type of spell released will be limited by the effect of preparation beforehand, and the cost is higher. But the advantage is that the success rate and power of the spell will increase in equal amounts. Well, before, Ryan tried to use the knowledge of Mosha and Taoism to use casting materials to assist in casting. But it may be because different worlds have different rules, and these rules sometimes conflict. The method that led to his own grouping has many flaws, so the effect is very general. And these books in the library just happened to help him a lot. And Hermione also found some magic in the library that involves the soul. She just can use this knowledge as another entry point for a more convenient rule between graduate students and death. When two people were in the library, the puppets also found a good place for themselves. When they were hanging out on campus, they just met Professor Yan Yun, a descendant of Yanshai. Rose Crystal, who can share all her knowledge with Ryan, uses puppet-making knowledge to talk to Professor Yan Yun very much, so Professor Yan Yun also shared his ancestral puppet secrets with the little guy. At the same time, let your puppets and the Rose Girl learn from each other to help these new little puppets improve their usual fighting and spellcasting levels. After spending half a month reading Ryan's books they wanted to read, they naturally became acquainted with many heavenly alchemists who were reading books in the library while they were on holiday. So when one of these alchemists shouted to try to learn from the ring one afternoon, Ryan and Hermione also followed. Challenge fighting is our favorite activity, and it is much more popular than the Quidditch imported from Yu. Yan, a young woman from the Heavenly Dynasty, said that she is a student of Kunlun College and started 6th grade. They met Ryan when they were reading. She appeared in school during the holiday because she planned to take the exam after graduating from Kunlun College, plus her family had good financial conditions, so came in advance to feel the breath of the highest school of alchemists in the heaven. The ring fighting is actually built in a sunken stadium, which is divided by the magic barrier into a basketball court. There are people playing in each field, there are single players, and there are 2 or 3 teams. There are 10 venues in the entire stadium, and 4 people who look like professors are always ready to block those 2 dangerous magic. Okay, I will play first. Yan said that he entered a ring with the greeting of several companions. As soon as she and her opponent stood up, she saw her opponent raising a red light, but Yan reached out and held up a plate-sized blue translucent shield to block the red light. It's a sneak attack again. What do you only learn in July? It can't be a little brighter. After she said, a sword pointed to the front. A transparent gas sword shot out. The male alchemist with ponytail opposite her hurriedly flicked the trick to the side. The air sword struck on the slate floor with special treatment and made the sound of gold and stone. I can also attack sneakily. The alchemist of July looked like an acquaintance with Yan. He placed red or green light beams from time to time to hinder Yan's actions. But Ryan could feel that he actually used these moves as a cover, secretly releasing something like a tiny insect, with some medicine powder in between. Because of the dual purpose, July Alchemist was forced to the edge of the ring step by step. Just when he seemed to be falling out of the ring, he smiled at Yan. 5 gods gathering, you are fooled. With one of his gestures, the things he put on the table were activated immediately. A green smoke emerged from the ground like petals, then wrapped in Yanyan. Ha, I won. But at the moment when the July Alchemist cheered out, Yan's crisp voice came out from the green smoke balloon. My stupid brother. Do you really think you won? The words didn't fall. A big transparent ball of football hit the front of the July Alchemist and burst into burst. The July Alchemist who was still cheering in Sao Bao was just blown up. Then he fell to the ground in disgrace. It feels like a fracture. My elder sister, you are too cruel. The young July Alchemist stood up and waved his hands to remove the dust from his body, then complained to Yan who came out of the dust. I have guarded you since you last used this trick. Don't treat everyone else as a fool. Yan grabbed the ear of the man after cleaning up the dust on her body. The actual combat is to be adaptable, and it is foolish to use a set of tricks back and forth. Next, at the invitation of Yan's brothers, Ryan and Hermione had a 2-on-2 fight with them. Sister Yan's brother does have certain practical skills. At the beginning, the younger brother released the mist and began to cover his eyes, while the sister hid in the mist and launched an attack. However, Ryan and Hermione easily sensed their sister's position hidden in this mist that could block the general magical detection by using their magic, and then quickly hit the same point with 2 consecutive silent coma spells. The first enchantment broke the opponent's defensive magic, and then the second enchantment knocked out the opponent. The battle lasted for less than a minute, and then Ryan and his volunteers played several times against each other, but the battles for those battles, whether one-on-one or 2-person team battles, basically ended in 1 minute. Fighting. Some people didn't even know how they failed when they were defeated. The onlookers around looked frustrated. Yan is a very outgoing person, and during the half-month library study time, they are quite familiar with Ryan, so she came directly to ask, is the wizard in Britain so powerful? No, explained Hermione, who looked at the frustrated onlookers. We are just an example. You reads www.uukanzu.com. For example, Ryan won the top 3 championships the year before. In the first game, he alone drove a Western Dragon to a dying state, and this year, we retired in the battle against the Death Eaters, the most powerful terrorist organization in our country. According to one of our Urus, in fact, our strength is no worse than that of Uru in some professions. You don't have to think of us as ordinary students. After a brief introduction of what Uru is, he came up with a pair of young twins. Will we have the honor to deal with you? Brother Wang, how do you adults come to bully my nephew and nephew? Uncle Ryan squeezed from the crowd and looked at the twins. I can remember that you took the 3rd and 4th places respectively when the inspector enrolled last year, and won a 3rd-class merit in 1 year after joining. Such a high level now runs to bully my nephews who have not graduated. Isn't it too much? Professor Liang, it's actually like this, another professor next to him who just watched the whole course explained, and after listening to the explanation, Uncle Gong smiled. Okay, you 2 guys are more powerful than I thought. There are so many of them. Now that you are going to try it, some of our professors will serve as referees for you. Soon several professors connected the 4 rings together and created some bunkers and obstacles on the top. Afterwards, in the cheers of the teachers and students around, 4 people went to the ring to prepare for the discussion between them. Chapter 461, Communicate with. The inspection of the Celestial Empire is similar to the British era, and they are all elites in the elite. The inspections that achieved 3rd-class merits within 1 year of employment can be regarded as the first year of the British novice era to directly get the Merlin Sanji medal level. This is of course with luck in it. But if you don't have the strength, you may not even be able to retreat. Sure enough, as soon as he started, Ryan could clearly feel that the person who experienced the actual combat was completely different from the novice. In the first step of their battle, they found a place where they could hide themselves, and then the 2 people covered each other and attacked Ryan. Over here, when facing their spells, they will avoid them with as little action as possible. Only when they can't avoid them, they will choose to use the magic of the same level as the incoming magic to add defense to themselves. Ryan immediately changed their tactics when they discovered that these spell harassment did not hinder 2 people. Hermione began to manipulate the shadow to spread to the surrounding ground, and Ryan played one after another runes in the air to set traps on the ground. After seeing this scene, the Wang brothers immediately stopped forward, and then stretched out their palms to hit 2 transparent at the same time. Vitality bomb, Ryan said in his mind, but he didn't dare to relax at all. Waving his wand quickly, a chain of runes was released and flew to the Wang brothers. Hermione relied on Ryan's cover to use the shadow to form a black mist-like barrier. Watching the chain twist around him, the Wang family brothers fired the magic on their hands. Ryan immediately felt the powerful pressure on this magic. Under his command, the chain of runes turned into a trace of silk thread that wrapped around the two transparent formed by magic. As Ryan's wand picked up, these runes took too small into the sky. At more than 20 meters above the ground, the ball exploded. Even on the ground, people can feel a strong airflow blowing down. This magic is a relatively complex and powerful magic, and the corresponding cost is extremely high consumption. While the Wang brothers were preparing for the next magical gap, Ryan launched a counterattack. The first shot was Hermione. She first manipulated the shadows of the two men and bound them tightly. Then Ryan launched a counterattack while the two tried to break free from the mud-like black mist that bound their feet. As the wand shook, Lane used a coma spell. However, unlike ordinary British wizards, the onlookers and students saw dozens of red beams of rain hitting the Wang brothers in a short time. The Wang brothers continued to dodge, but they were still hit in the end. Strangely, after being hit, only one person of the Wang brothers took a step back after being hit. Fake. The Wang brothers suddenly woke up, but it was too late at this time, and a cane-like current took this opportunity to hide under the black mist released by Hermione and moved to their feet, and then gave them a shock of love before the two reacted. It seems that after you received the medal, it was a little bit floating. Cyclone Bozza, you could have used one person to provide cover. As a result, you used this magic at the same time to cause the window period to be taken by your opponent. The elderly wizard with obvious burn marks came out and said aloud. The Wang brothers immediately stood up, and then lowered their heads to the old wizard. However, it is also a good thing for you to fail to learn this time, so that you can get to know yourself well, so as not to lose your life in the real battle. He made me feel like Moody. Hermione leaned over and said, "It looks like a battle-hardened look." Her guess was very accurate. When the two of Ryan came down from the ring, the uncle told them that the two old wizards who criticized the Wang brothers on the side were called Liu Qingzi, the chief instructor of the Northwest Division of the Tankao Inspector. He used to be the top inspector of the Heavenly Dynasty. After retiring at the age of 60, he returned to his hometown to become the inspector and supervisor of the region. Lao Liang, your nephew and grandson are very powerful. After criticizing Wang for being twins, Instructor Liu walked over and patted Uncle Ryan on the shoulder, and then looked at them. Ryan thought his eyes were as sharp as those of the eagle. "Are you two little guys interested in coming here for further study? I can write a recommendation letter to you." Instructor Liu warmly extended an invitation to Ryan, and according to his uncle's introduction, this Instructor Liu was one of the most famous professors in this college, and he was happy to share his years of fighting experience. There are many new generations of inspectors who succeeded in taking office only because of his help. Study? Naturally willing. But we still have 2 years to graduate. It's okay. I think I will definitely be here 2 years from now. Just ask your uncle to write a letter to me. Even if people can't come, you can teach by correspondence. Instructor Lee waved his arm hard and said, "Thank you then." Ryan thanked very seriously, and then watched the instructor walk out of the crowd with his head down and his frustrated Wang family. After dinner, Ryan asked his uncle alone, "Can you tell me why this place is so friendly to me? Shouldn't you just look at me as a descendant of the Heavenly Dynasty?" "Of course not." Ryan's uncle seemed very open on this topic. "On the one hand, the magic plants you provide are very valuable, and the equivalent exchange is our principle here. We cannot destroy this principle because you are not a native. On the other hand, because of the secrecy law, we are in the International Wizarding Union. The meeting is not a formal member, so I hope to connect with the outside world through some channels more convenient." "The law of secrecy? What's going on?" Ryan asked, puzzled, because the history of magic he had learned before was inexplicable, saying that East Asia has a very unique magic society outside Japan that is separate from the secrecy law system. But other things are not detailed. When the West passed the secrecy law, we have always opposed it, which is different from the West's style of insisting on pure blood among shamans. Because the long history of marriage with ordinary people makes us indistinguishable from the world of ordinary people. Open. Can you imagine that at least half of the wizards need to be separated from their lovers, wives, children and even their parents in order to comply with the broken secrecy law? In the West, because there are not many wizards who intermarry with ordinary people, the wizards who are unwilling to accept the secrecy law are naturally quickly suppressed. But in the face of our entire East except Japan, the International Federation only can pretend to be invisible. www.mtlnovel.com. Speaking of this, my uncle seemed a little proud, but we still hope to learn some lessons from the Western magic world. It is a pity that the British wizarding world, which was originally the leader of the Western wizarding world, has been the same as the backwater for more than half a century. It has completely lost the reform spirit of more than a century ago. As long as it is useful, even mild things are willing to use. This really is a problem. Lei nodded. But from you and your daughter-in-law, I can see that they have made considerable progress in recent years. Uncle Gong turned his words, so they hope to communicate with you to grasp the latest progress in the Western magic world. Ryan feels that they seem to have some misunderstandings, but since this misunderstanding will not hurt anyone, but will bring benefits to both sides, Ryan is also happy to make a fortune and make a fortune. Since this we will go all out to communicate with everyone. That's good. Uncle Gong nodded. Although our family is not a very powerful family here, it is definitely not weak. As long as you take out enough weight, I can let the guys out of the box to pull out their extraordinary skills. Chapter 462, Got Engaged. Ryan found that the uncle said that letting those who communicated to pull out the bottom of the box was not an exaggeration. Method. Naturally, this kind of communication does not include the core motivation, because these core motivations reflect the cornerstone of a person's magic learning, and if it is not a system, it does not make much sense to get others. In addition, Ryan also received Uncle's guidance on magical botany and many magical combat practices. There are also some European magics that he hasn't learned yet. Yes, you read that right, it's European magic. As the uncle said, Tankao has never cut off communication with the West. This includes learning the magic of the Western world and Africa. Although this kind of learning cannot learn some of the family's ancestral magic, but a variety of commonly used magic can still learn a full set. Phantom Shift and some housework magic are the only Western magic that was popular in large scale in heaven. Uncle Gong said with a smile. I have to admit that these spells are much easier to use than our own traditional magic, so after getting these magics, it took us a long time to integrate them into our own magic system. This is the third week after Ryan came to heaven, and only 3 days from the engagement ceremony. The uncle decided to take this last chance to let Ryan and Hermione learn to transform under his care. According to him, other magic can be self-taught with books, but this kind of magic involving space still needs someone to carry. Not to mention that the uncle thinks that the magic used for running is more useful than the magic used for combat. I tell you, you can't be too serious when you are in a real war. If you can win, you will come. Otherwise, you will definitely lose a lot. For example, this Phantom Shift will allow you to move and time when you can't fight. Whether it is practiced in the future and then revenge or find a companion to help is better than dying in place. Before imparting the Phantom, Uncle began to seriously teach Ryan their experience of 2 battles. Although this experience does not sound very glorious and correct, it is indeed very practical. After a while, the real teaching began. Uncle's expression also became very serious. The core of this magic is goal, determination, and calmness. That is, you need to focus your attention on your goal, that is, where you want to go. Then make up your mind to occupy the space you want. Let think the desire to reach overwhelms the smallest part of the whole body. Finally, it rotates in place to let itself enter the state of the void, and the action must be calm. The destination is reached. After speaking, Uncle Gong gave them a demonstration, moving from their front to their back. Some high-level wizards can be dual-purpose in combat, using Phantom Shift to quickly change their position, which can give them a great advantage in combat. Of course, if the level is not enough, phantoms in combat shifting shape will only make you separate. The next step is practice time, which may be through some kind of sensitivity to space brought by life and death to 2 people. After 3 hours, the 2 people could have successfully teleported from several designated locations and teleported back. Not bad. Uncle Gong nodded. I heard that your school in Britain is learning this magic in 12 hours. According to this state, you can learn it in 3 hours and you can be considered a relatively genius. In addition to reading books in the next 2 days, Ryan learned that Sky Dynasty had a special use method for phantom migration after in-depth research and analysis, short-distance transmission between battles. After 2 days of practice, Ryan and Hermione finally learned this skill that required 2 uses. It must be said that for those who are good at melee, this skill is far more important than other wizards. For example, the average wizard may not even think that his opponent can throw a spell at him in the distance, and suddenly appears next to him and raises his hand. Just as they practiced, the uncle stopped them. Okay, stop practicing, you need a good rest. We don't feel tired. And this is noon. Lane looked at his uncle and asked curiously. I think we can practice for a few more hours and rest after dinner at night. Study is a good thing. I think this is the reason why you can be excellent. But you are better off now, because tomorrow at noon is your engagement ceremony. Uncle Gong said with a kind smile. Oh, my God. These 2 days are so busy, I almost forgot this. Hermione looked agitated suddenly. I didn't prepare anything. What should I do? This is my engagement ceremony. I have been too fascinated by the 2 days of learning. Don't worry. Uncle Gong pressed his hands in a slightly restless posture. We are all ready. After a while, we will go back to the village directly after lunch. Tomorrow morning, you just have to follow the arrangements of the people in your family. Rest assured, they are all experienced people, and we promise to let you play tomorrow. There will be no problems at the time. Not to mention that the engagement ceremony of Tankao is not the same as that of the western side. The core of tomorrow is your parents. You just need to stand there. Uncle's comfort did not reassure their 2 of them. Even if the signature dishes in the cafeteria at noon that day were their favorite squirrel fish and sweet and sour tenderloin, they couldn't arouse their appetite. The cafeteria of the Tankao Alchemist College is quite like the cafeteria of Lane's last life. It is surrounded by a large glass window with various foods behind it, and in the middle are a large number of 4 or 6 people. There is no domestic elf here, but the wizards responsible for logistics can still use magic to cook a large amount of delicious food in a short time. For example, Hermione had bought 3 large and thick recipes of alchemists before to learn how to make the above. According to her statement, since she is going to get married, then some things must always be learned. But for some reason, Ryan is much faster than Hermione in learning these 3 recipes. Tomorrow is the engagement ceremony. Although it is not necessary for them to do anything according to the uncle, Ryan and Hermione are still very nervous. They both went to bed early that night, but did not fall asleep until very late. This does not affect anything in the tension between the two people. The sun rose the next morning as scheduled. www.mtlnovel.com. After eating breakfast early in the morning, Ryan and the two who had rushed from Kyontang yesterday, the family and parents, started to tidy up together. Their dress is full of modern style in accordance with the custom of Tankao. For example, parents of both parties only need to wear formal clothes. But there was a small accident in the middle. Mr. Granger was wearing a tuxedo directly to appear formally, which made Lane's grandfather pull his father Lambert into a tunic suit. Lane and Hermione's clothing style is also the same. They simply came out wearing their school uniform robe. According to Grandpa Ryan, you are now students, so the most appropriate way to wear is to wear a school uniform. As he said before, the core of the heavenly style engagement ceremony is indeed not the two engaged. After the parents of both parties exchanged a big red post with the word birthday, the ceremony was over. The only place where Ryan needed them was that the uncle added the process of writing Hermione's name on the genealogy after learning that the two had been blessed by Phoenix. According to him, those who receive the blessings of the Phoenix, their love is loyal and firm. So you can write on the genealogy in advance to comfort the ancestors. After this set of procedures was completed, it was lunchtime, and they were finally relieved. This also represents the completion of the main goal of coming to heaven. So at the dining table, the two seemed a lot more leisurely. Apart from greeting some elders, they tasted the delicacies on the table carefully. After all, this kind of rich and local banquet is rare. In short, the main task of coming to heaven was completed, and Ryan finally got rid of the title of single dog for 2 lifetimes. Chapter 463, Harry's Trip. Just at 9 o'clock the next morning, after Ryan's engagement ceremony was held, 2 blue birds flew to Ryan where they lived with their larger parchment letters, and their parents were delivered to them last night. Ryan, who was returning to the Kyontang plane, just got up from the bed. Hermione, our previous OWL's test results came out. Ryan shouted to Hermione, who was packing up in the bathroom. What? Oh, finally here. I hope I got a good test this time. The cross-border email across Europe and Asia plus the time to pass the customs is really anxious. If in the UK, I think we would have done it a week ago. These emails should be received. Hermione walked out of the bathroom and wiped her wet face with a dry towel. Can't wait to tear the envelope. The two pulled out the letter and looked at it. As expected, their exam scored 10 excellent points, which means they can choose the courses they planned to take this year. I just don't know what happened to my friends. Hermione nodded with satisfaction after reading the test results, and then asked Ryan, what do you think Harry is doing now? I don't know much about other people, but I guess Harry must have a lot to do. After all, as a designated savior, the holiday must not stop his busyness. Maybe Professor Dumbledore took him out for adventure, that's it. Lane's boiled. The same is true. A week ago, Principal Dumbledore went to Priscilla Road to rescue Harry from his uncle's house. After sending Harry's luggage to the burrow, Dumbledore brought Harry's entourage to a certain form. In the courtyard of an abandoned village, there is an old war monument in the middle of the site, and several benches. After following Professor Dumbledore for a while, passing an empty tavern and several houses, Harry finally asked, unable to bear his heart, well, Professor, where are we? What are we going to do? This is the charming village of Badley Barbiton, Harry. Dumbledore walked in front, turned a corner, and passed a telephone booth and a bus shelter. Ah, as you can see, we are short of professors every year. So now we are here to persuade a retired colleague of mine to come back to work and return to Hogwarts. As for the reason for calling you over, I will know. Afterwards, Harry and Dumbledore discussed his scar. Harry, thank goodness, it finally won't hurt. And also said something about the recent situation. For example, the sacrifice of Emmeline Vance and the serious injury of Amelia Burns. Dumbledore, Miss Burns was indeed lucky that day. When Voldemort came to her, he just met Percy and took his team to visit. She was so lucky to leave her life, but it is estimated that poor Burns is going to spend Halloween in Street Munger. They chatted and approached a neat little stone house in the garden. Dumbledore looked towards the well-maintained path, and his heart sank suddenly. The hinge of the front door opened, and the door hung diagonally. Harry, pull out your wand and follow me closely. Dumbledore took out his wand and whispered, and at the same time glanced around to make sure that no one was around, lit the wand and quietly entered the room. Harry also held nervously wand. After entering the living room along the porch, a mess appeared in front of them. A master clock broke at their feet, the clock face cracked, and the pendulum lay a little further away, like an abandoned sword. A piano fell to the ground and the keys were scattered around. There was also a fragment of a chandelier shattered shimmering nearby. The mat was thrown around in a mess, and it was deflated, and the feathers came out of the crack. broken glass and broken pieces of porcelain sprinkled like powder. To make matters worse, the sharp-eyed Harry saw a lot of dark red sticky things splashing on the wallpaper. He looked along the red things with his wand and found that even the ceiling was full of these things. Is this an attack? Harry thought, but after taking a closer look, he felt something was wrong. He had read several detective books while he was resting a while ago. Ryan had read and criticized some of the bridges inside and was worthless. By the way, he also talked about some of the simplest crime scene judgments. Based on what Ryan said before, Harry couldn't figure out if the situation in the room was a fierce battle. Why are there only few traces of footsteps on the floor, only some broken furniture? You also see that the situation is not right? Harry Dumbledore, looking at the pensive man, said calmly. I think it's just, an old friend joked us. After talking with a relaxed and even more naughty expression on his face, he walked quietly with Harry to the edge of a single sofa, and then suddenly poked the bulging single sofa with the tip of his wand. On the back, the head of a bald fat old man suddenly emerged from the top of the chair back and cried out, Merlin's beard. Soon the single sofa turned into a fat old man standing there, still rubbing his stomach with his hands. You don't need to stick so hard with a wand, Albus. It hurts me. Also yes, where did I reveal it? Holers, if the Death Eaters have really been here, they will definitely leave a black mark on the house. Dumbledore said. Yes, I will introduce you, Harry. Come and see me here, an old friend and colleague, Professor Horace Slughorn. Horace, I know him. Harry Potter, said the old man looking at Harry's forehead. The recent newspapers are all photos of him. He walked to the door and locked the door. Do you want me to clean up for you? Dumbledore asked politely. Please. The two old men waved their wands in unison with their back-to-back. Pieces of furniture jumped back to their original positions, the ornaments were restored to their original shape in midair, the feathers were re-drilled back into the cushions. The fragments of the silver frame on the ground were reorganized into frames and flew back to the writing desk, and the chandelier finally returned to the room. On top, the damaged and stained areas of the whole house were restored to their original condition. Under the relighting of the lights, the house swarmed up. You think he can convince me, right? I tell you, Albus, the answer is no. Slughorn said, the fact is undeniable. I am an old man, Albus. But the old man has the right to live a quiet life and get some material enjoyment. Did I hide in Tibet? Dumbledore revealed. I think they should be looking for you too. Yes, I have to move home once every few weeks. But Albus, look at the casualty rate of your school professors. Are you going to leave? Looking at Professor Dumbledore, who stood up, Slughorn immediately asked expectantly. No, I just want to ask if I can use your bathroom, Dumbledore said. Watching Dumbledore walk away, Slughorn said to Harry, who was watching him, you look a lot like your father, except your eyes. I know www.mtlnovel.com like my mother. Harry nodded. He heard this many times, and he felt a little bored. Lily Evans is one of the smartest students I have ever taught. Slughorn seemed to be caught in memory. If you consider that she is still a mule, then it is even more remarkable. It is often said that she should be a student of our college, but every time she will always get an unkind answer. I was the dean of Slytherin College at the time. Then he glanced at Harry. Don't look at me with that kind of look. I am not the kind of prejudiced person. I read the newspaper 2 years ago and found that your two classmates who received the Merlin Medal should be Mule-born wizards, and they were also my favorite students. Many Mules were born, for example, your mother, and then Dirk Cressway, who is one level below her, is now the director of the Fairy Liaison Office. Speaking of this, Slughorn was excited and pulled Harry to see him carrying a picture frame full of cabinets. This is all the students I have taught before, such as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Prophet, Barnabas Scuff. He often sends owls to me to listen to my opinions on the current situation. Ambrosius Fromm, because of my introduction, got a job, so now every now and then send me candy preserves. Another example is Gnog Jones, the captain of the Holyhead Happy team. I can get free tickets whenever I want. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it for a long time. The old man looked a little frustrated. I haven't contacted any of them for a whole year. This feeling of being forgotten by the whole world is just awful. Chapter 464, New Professor. Although you need to hide everywhere, but this year, the discreet wizards try not to show their heads. Slughorn said, Dumbledore wants me to teach in school, but at this time Hogwarts, it is tantamount to publicly proclaiming that I support the Order of the Phoenix. I admire those brave people, but I must admit that I am not that kind of warrior. The old man said, his hand. Come to school and not participate in the Order of the Phoenix. How could there be so many risks? Harry was overly nervous about Slughorn and could even be described as timid. Most teachers are not members of the Order of the Phoenix, and no one has been killed. You know that Voldemort was only afraid of Professor Dumbledore. I can't think of any safer place than Hogwarts Castle. Hearing the word Voldemort, Slughorn fought a cold war, then grumbled reluctantly. Yes, you have something to say. The person who can't even say his name is indeed afraid of Dumbledore. Since I don't want to be a Death Eater, then they will definitely not treat me as a group of them. If I am by Albus, I should be safer. Think of poor Burns. If it's not luck this time, She might be dead. I dare not say that my defense here is more than the Ministry of Magic's defense for her family. Better. Horace, Dumbledore walked back into the room and raised a Mull magazine in his hand. Do you mind if I take this away? I like sweater knitting. Okay, Harry, we have been harassing Horace for a long time, and I think we should go. Harry stood up, and Slughorn seemed uneasy. Of course, take it, but won't you leave now? Yeah, since you rejected the job, it doesn't make much sense for us to stay here. Well, goodbye. With that said, Dumbledore walked out of the room with Harry with nostalgia. If you are willing to really come to the school, I swear that the school has added a lot of safety measures this year. Just as Harry walked out of the door, a shout came from behind. Well, I agree. Dumbledore turned around and saw Slughorn standing at the door of the living room panting. Watching Dumbledore stare at himself, Slughorn looked a little excited. I must be crazy, but I am willing to go to Hogwarts as a professor this year. But you must not be treated less, such as adding me salary. For example, I want the dormitory of the former vice principal on the second floor. Okay, let's see you on September 1st. Dumbledore waved his hand and then took Harry to go out. Good job, Harry. But I didn't do anything. The few words I just said could not convince such an experienced old man. Harry said with some doubt. No, you have done a lot, Dumbledore said. When they went down the mountain, Slughorn is a standard egoist. For example, he has always liked to make famous, successful, and powerful people. The powerful people bring enough convenience to their lives, and even select those who he thinks will be better in all walks of life in the future. To build a club with himself as the core, he let them know each other and establish useful connections. In the end, you can always get some kind of benefit, or get a box of his favorite pineapple compote for free, or have the opportunity to recommend a clerk to the Goblin Liaison Office. Why did you choose him to be a professor at school? Harry asked, a little puzzled. He is still very competent as a professor, Dumbledore explained. And even in the most dangerous times of that year, as the Dean of Slytherin and a member of an ancient pureblood family, not only did he not turn to Voldemort, he was able to treat students of different ancestry more fairly. This is enough. By the way, you need to remember, Professor Slughorn will want to put you under the door. Harry, you will be a gem in his collection, a boy who will never die. Or, use what they recently told you. Salutation, Star of Salvation. I suggest you stay as vigilant as possible, but there is no need to be disgusted because he did not do it out of malicious intent. After telling this, Dumbledore asked Harry to put his hand on his arm. When Harry recovered from the vertigo of phantom dislocation, seeing a crooked silhouette in front of him, it was his second favorite place in the world, the burrow. But when he was going in, Dumbledore stopped him. Harry, there are some things I need to tell you, Dumbledore said seriously. I just treated you as a child at the end of last semester, which resulted in a series of events at the end of the semester. At this point I want to apologize to you. But that's mainly because of my recklessness. Speaking of which, Harry also seemed a little excited. At the end of last semester, I can only say good luck, otherwise I will lose my two friends now. I have been thinking about this holiday. Look at Mrs. Burns. Look at Emmeline. The next one might be me, right? If I really had my turn, I would fight to the end. Like Ryan, people who had nothing to do with this war were willing to fight to the end in the Ministry of Magic. The reason escaped. Well said. It is the son of James and Lily. Professor Dumbledore nodded slowly. There are some things you can tell your friends and godfather, such as the prophecy. After he finished raising his hand, he stopped what he wanted to say. You may not want to confess these things, or you may not want your friends to worry about you. But you must know that they are fighting for the same goal as you, and you can even live your life for this goal. www.mplnovel.com. You should give them trust, just as they trust you. Looking at Harry nodded in recognition, Dumbledore continued. Also, I think you already know what you are facing, so I will give you some special teaching. Of course, you can't help follow Professor Snape's lesson in Closed Brain. This is really good. Those lessons are simply. He stopped at this point, refusing to complain. I can understand your thoughts. Those lessons are basically useless for you. Dumbledore shook his head helplessly. Well, Harry, before breaking up, there are two more things. One is that you better put the cloak is always with you, even in the school. Second, in order to welcome you, the burrow has the strictest security protection that the Ministry of Magic can provide. These measures have brought certain to Arthur and Molly degree of inconvenience. For example, all their mail must be reviewed by the department before they can be delivered. But they don't mind at all. They are only concerned about your safety. However, if you take risks when you live with them, I'm so sorry for them. I know. Harry nodded. That's good. I'm going first. You hurry in. I wish you a happy summer holiday. Dumbledore shook his hand at him, and then a phantom disappeared before him. Harry looked at the burrow at this time, and the lights in the house seemed so warm in the dark night. In particular, the silhouette of Ginny displayed on the bay window gave him a happy smile on his face. Chapter 465, New Home. At Pearl International Airport, Lane and Hermione are bidding farewell to their parents. After a month's trip to the Heavenly Dynasty, they finally embarked on a journey back to England. Relax, aunt and uncle. I will take care of Hermione," Lane said to the Grangers. Hermione was chatting with Ryan's parents at this time. Although she didn't know what they were talking about, Hermione, who was covering her mouth and laughing, knew that the content of the chat should be very relaxing and pleasant. After two people listened to their parents for a while, the parents left. Ryan stood side by side and waved goodbye until they walked into the crowd and couldn't see. "This harvest is really great," Hermione said happily in the waiting hall. "The celestial magic I learned this time is very useful to me, but unfortunately all the spells need Mandarin to activate, and it has its own set of magic system. If it is not proficient in celestial culture, people outside can't use these magics. I can learn to understand the magic thanks to the memory infuser used before." At this point, Hermione finally responded to one thing. "This should be all the secrets you can memorize before." Ryan suddenly felt that sometimes Hermione's memories of being nice and smart were not a good thing for herself. This time they switched from heaven to a whole set of basic magic, equivalent to what British students can learn at Hogwarts. The most important thing is that these materials are accompanied by a large number of notes so that they can learn by themselves. In addition, Ryan also acquired skills in puppetry, magic plant planting, and magic material casting. In short, this harvest is huge, and at the same time, a world of wizards that can live in harmony with the world of ordinary people outside has also pointed out the direction of the future struggle for the two people. In addition, Lane also signed a series of purchase agreements with his family's family. These goods plus the goods produced in the Norwegian plantation are enough to joke that the store has been operating alone for a long time. In this chaotic era, it is very important to ensure a stable supply of raw materials in joke shops, because it is not certain that a certain raw material manufacturer or a certain raw material will disappear completely. The first thing to return to the UK is to go to the residence. Before going to heaven, Ryan took out a lot of gold and gave it to his father, Mr. Lambert. Mr. Lambert later collected the gold and deposited it in the bank's safe, and then commissioned a real estate company to buy a manor for two people home after two people. Fortunately, Mr. Lambert is now a relatively well-known writer. Not long ago sold the Hollywood movie copyright of the new novel, so it took no money to raise so much money at a time. This is a manor with a history of over 100 years. The main building is a two-story Victorian building. In addition, it also brought 5 acres of farm. The former owner of the manor was a nobleman, who decided to sell the manor because he could not afford the house tax and maintenance fees. As a developed country in the West, Britain can say anything as long as it has money. Therefore, in the future, you only need to entrust the farm outside to a professional agricultural company, and then you just need to take the money every year. Of course, this is much less than the money you earn from farming, which is convenient. Naturally, the price of such a manor is not cheap. In this era, he spent nearly £700,000. But after taking a closer look at the decoration design in the manor after receiving the manor, both of them felt the value of the money spent. For the next 3 days, the two spent all their energy on the renovation of the manor. Lane first set up an alchemy array that could shield the entire house and the magic reaction of the yard, and then began to set up various magic defenses for the house. Hermione helped portray the runes on the side. At the same time, because of the soul contract, Hermione was granted the same authority as the Rose Crystal in the Universal Realm shop. So she and Rose Crystal used the space door to go to other worlds in her free time, and found out what she needed to decorate her new home from the various things collected by Ryan from other worlds. Thanks to the modular design of the Refuge Company, he can directly choose to become a base. With the help of magic and robots, the manor's finishing work is very smooth. After 3 days of work, the three of them managed everything at home smoothly. This is our home, and it feels really great. After cleaning up on the third afternoon, everyone sat together in the living room for afternoon tea, glancing around the house and looking through the glass window. In the green field, Rose Crystal lamented on the windowsill with a cup of black tea. "Yeah, that's the feeling of home," Ryan said and touched Rose Crystal's head. And then Rose Crystal shook his head and shook his hand down. Hermione laughed when she saw the scene. It must be said that this warm atmosphere makes the tired body and spirit relax a lot at once. Waiting for dinner, Ryan said to Hermione sitting opposite while eating grilled salmon, "I have finally sorted out all the things I have harvested recently, and it is time for a new adventure. Tomorrow I will plan to go to the new world for an adventure early in the morning. Would you like to come together?" "Of course, this is my pleasure." Hermione raised her eyebrows and said with a smile. The next morning, the two men packed up the things they needed and led the Rose Crystal together. Lane considered that he was not alone in this adventure, so he lingered in front of the grocery store in Wonji except for a while. He chose a level 6 world. After entering the 32-point offset point into the door of the Wonji grocery store, he pulled Hermione and Rose Crystal across the light blue barrier at the door. "Why is it in the woods again?" After crossing the barrier, they glanced at the surroundings for a while, and the Rose Crystal looked depressed. "Can we not appear in a slightly less original place? Every time we go to a world, we need to spend a lot of time to find people. It's not under my control." Ryan was also helpless. "Let's find it." According to the usual experience, The Son of Luck in this world will be nearby. It shouldn't take long to find it. This is the Douglas fir. Hermione, who had been watching the surrounding environment before, pointed to the surrounding trees after the daily fighting between Ryan and Rose Crystal. The whole forest is full of such trees. If we are on a more normal Earth, if we go above, then our location should be on the western coast of the Pacific Ocean in North America. If we sum up the temperature that is near freezing, we should be in the northwestern United States or Canada. It's amazing. Rose Crystal expressed her heartfelt appreciation to Hermione. Ryan had also input a whole set of encyclopedias into his brain before, but every time he needed to think for half a day to retrieve the knowledge he wanted from his brain. Okay, Rose Crystal. Ryan smiled helplessly. Let's find someone who can communicate around. After he finished, he glanced at the sky through the gaps in the branches of the coniferous forest. Unfortunately, the sky was gloomy. www.mtlnovel.com and the moss on the ground also showed here is a gloomy and damp place. Without seeing the stars and the sun, they cannot further determine the specific location here. It should be very close to the beach, and 3 people came to a beach without going far. According to the survival manual, if you are at the seaside, it is easier to meet human settlements along the coastline. In the forest, they found that the magic in the air is more active, which means that there is indeed some kind of extraordinary power in this world. Is that man committing suicide? They had just stood on the beach and looked towards the iron-gray sea for a few seconds. Rose Crystal sitting on Ryan's shoulder suddenly grabbed Ryan's hair and pointed his arm in one direction. Ryan and Hermione immediately looked in the direction of Rose Crystal's fingers, and saw a young woman in a dark t-shirt and jeans standing on the edge of the sea cliff, and then jumped straight down. Save people. Ryan and Hermione glanced at each other, and then acted immediately. Still looking for The Harry Potter Shopkeeper, free novel. Baidu direct search. Reading novels is easy. Equals. Chapter 466, Save People. After seeing someone jump into the sea from the cliff next to it, Ryan and Hermione immediately prepared to save people under the cliff. After running to the beach, Ryan pointed his hand to the sea. A mist of ice blew runes from Ryan's finger on. The fog fell on the sea surface and was immediately absorbed into the sea. Then an ice boat like the one used by Ryan during the Triwizard Tournament appeared on the sea surface. When all 3 of them jumped into the boat together, Ryan knocked on the side of the boat, and the boat drove under the cliff like an arrow off the string. But before they arrived, they saw another figure jump off the cliff, but looking at him shirtless in jeans. It should be saved by the water. Sure enough, when Ryan and they drove the boat under the cliff, their heads suddenly popped out of the water. They saw a Native American float up with a girl. So the 3 men hurriedly pulled the 2 people into the boat. After boarding the ship, Hermione and Rose Crystal immediately rescued the young lady. Fortunately, the girl didn't fall for a long time. It was just because of the temperature loss caused by choking water and cold sea water that made her comatose. So after Hermione used the recovery spell and evaporated the seawater on her body with her wand, the girl woke up. Belle, can you hear me? When the girl woke up, the boy who looked like an Aboriginal asked nervously, and he didn't relax until he saw the girl nodding. At this time he began to notice the situation around, especially now this ice boat carrying everyone, and Rose Crystal sitting on the side of the ship. Who are you? Vampire? He asked nervously. Lane could see that his entire body collapsed, like a wolf ready to hunt. No, not just that. The boy turned into a giant wolf directly in front of everyone on the ship. There are many obstacles. Ryan slammed the giant wolf directly into the water with a wand, and then Rose Crystal directly out of the air to make a few pieces of amethyst to lock the wolf's body. Although he struggled desperately, he couldn't get rid of the constraints that those crystals turned into. We are just British wizards traveling here, humans. Lane looked confused. Now we can be sure that the world is extraordinary should have werewolves and vampires. But the problem is that both werewolves and vampires are the darlings of Western fantasy movies. There are too many stories about them, so for the time being, Ryan can't figure out which one is this. World. Human. Impossible. Only vampires can master this extraordinary power. The Aboriginal boy recovered his human form in the water, and then was picked up by Ryan. He said in shock when he got on board, "I've never heard of a normal human being who has such power." You haven't heard that? It doesn't mean these don't exist. Hermione opened her space bag and took out a thermos pot, and poured a cup of hot cocoa inside to the girl who was trembling with the current situation. How do you prove a vampire? We can cooperate to prove that we are not. It's simple. The vampire is cold. It's like the temperature of a corpse, and the body is extremely hard, like marble. And they can't appear in the sun. The Aboriginal boy said, although it is cloudy all day long here, but if you are humans, your body should have temperature. That's it. Rose crystals that received Ryan's signal waved away the crystals in the air, and then Ryan extended his hand. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ryan Liang, a wizard from England. That is my companion Hermione Granger and my fiancé. We are now traveling to the American continent. When I walked here by the sea, I saw someone seeming to commit suicide by jumping into the sea, so I quickly used magic to turn the ice into a boat and save people. Hello, my name is Jacob Black. The native boy extended his hand and shook Ryan. Ryan keenly found that the hand of the Native American werewolf named Jacob was warmer than his own. The temperature is higher, just like someone who is a high fever. Isabella Swan, you can call me Bella. The girl who recovered from a cup of hot cocoa reached out and shook Hermione's hand. I'm just an ordinary human. When they came to the beach, another giant wolf rushed out, but he was stopped by Jacob. Sam, I have nothing. They are also humans, not enemies. The werewolf named Sam stopped when he heard Jacob's cry, and then became a Native American. Is it really okay? I just saw you become a werewolf. It's okay, just some misunderstandings. Jacob shook his head. They are just wizards from England, not vampires. Sorcerer? Sam looked surprised. I have never heard of wizards in this world. Will they be magical? Can they get back to life? It's magic, but it can't be brought back to life. We are just humans, not gods. Lane interjected. But when it comes to curing people and saving people, we are much stronger than ordinary people. Really? Can you do us a favor? We need to save someone who has a heart attack. He is dying. Sam looked excited, looking at Ryan with a look of expectation. Considering that after a new world, it was much better to know local people than to explore oneself, so Ryan nodded. If it is not a heart attack caused by magical factors, only a bottle of medicine is enough. Although many potions are not suitable for ordinary people without magic, even some potions that cure diseases for wizards are poisons for ordinary people. However, as an alchemist, Lane still made a lot of potions that can be drunk for ordinary people. Okay, leave it to me here. You rush back to the hospital and I will find you there in a moment. Thank you, Sam. Jacob supported Bella on the beach, while Ryan, Hermione, and Rose Crystal follow Sam to leave the beach. Sitting in a pickup truck, 4 people rushed to the hospital together. Considering that this hospital is for ordinary people, Rose Crystal cleverly let Hermione hug herself as if it were an ordinary doll. Despite the age of Hermione, holding a doll seems a bit weird, but this is better than letting Rose Crystal walk into the hospital on his own. The hospital in the town is not big. www.mplnovel.com. Lane thinks that if it is put in a big city, such a heart disease should not die now. But now, through Hermione's life perception, Ryan knows that the person lying in the emergency room should have survived tonight if nothing else happened. At this time, Sam, who accompanied them, said something to the people at the door, and soon those people found a way to open the doctor and let them go in. It's okay. There's a rescue. Ryan breathed a sigh of relief when he pulled out his wand and examined the person lying on the bed. Then he took out a crystal bottle filled with green liquid from his arms and opened the cap to infuse the person on the bed. Within a few minutes of drinking the potion, the face of the patient on the bed began to slowly regain his blood color. Seeing this, Ryan informed the people outside that the person on the bed was all right. Really thank you so much. A young female werewolf shook Ryan's hand hard. Thank you for saving my father. Chapter 467, Get to Know. Then there was a hurry in this small hospital, but the faces of these werewolves looked a lot easier. When they learned that Ryan had planned to stay here for a while but had no place to stay, they warmly invited Ryan to live with them in their Querette tribe. Through Sam's introduction in the car, they finally knew that they are now in the state of Washington. This is not the same as Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. Washington State is the most northwestern state in the United States, close to the border between the United States and Canada. And they are now in Fox Township in Washington State. On the way to the edge of the town, it was raining constantly in the sky. When passing the temperate forest, I saw trees and stones infiltrated with rainwater covered with a thick layer of dark green. The endless alpine trees are long and illusory like a dream country. They could see a river flowing out of the woods. Sam said that the river was called the Querette River because of the name of their tribe. The Querette River surging through the ancient forest filled with emerald green fog, sing along the sea and sing away. Where are we going now? Ryan couldn't figure out which world it was, so he simply didn't want to. He looked at the bushes outside the window and asked curiously about Sam, who was driving. In the back seat of the pickup truck, Hermione was chatting with Rose Crystal. Emily's house? She is my girlfriend. No, it should be a fiancé now, Sam said with a happy smile on his face. I don't think it's suitable for you to stay home with a group of single young men, and my fiancé's cooking skills are superb. Then thank you. Ryan leaned back in his seat relaxed. Pickup drove past the house to the east of the town and turned into a narrow dirt road. The dirt road was full of a small house, and the grey paint on the walls of the house almost fell off and faded away. The door of the room was painted blue and covered with mottled paint like the wall. There was a narrow window beside the door, and the row of orange flowers under the window brightened the place. The people here should live very optimistically, Hermione said after looking at the house. After everyone got out of the car, Sam opened the door and a sweet scent came out. I think Emily is cooking, and you can also try it. Because of me, she always cooks a lot. Following him into the house, Ryan found that the interior space was not large, and the living room was used as a kitchen. A young bronze-skinned woman stood at the sink by the dining table and looked at the oven. What should be baked in the oven is some kind of cream dessert, and the good smell permeates the entire living room. There are guests. Welcome. Sam rarely brings strangers to the house. Are you hungry? I'll bake some muffins for you, Emily said in a soft voice, then turned face. Ryan felt Hermione holding his hand violently, because Emily had only a smile on her left face, and there were 3 deep red scars on her right cheek from forehead to chin. It can be seen that this injury has passed a lot of time. The wound has already healed, but unfortunately the imprint is shed. One of the scars was drawn from the side of her dark, almond-like eyes, while the other one grabbed the corner of her right mouth, making her right face always a bitter face. Fortunately, Ryan had experienced strong winds and waves, so they looked at this disfigured face like normal people and greeted them normally and introduced themselves. Soon the muffins were baked, and everyone sat around the table and started eating muffins. At this time, Rose Crystal began to sell cuteness in front of Emily, and soon made her chuckle. It seems that these muffins aren't enough. I'll make something more. After the plate with muffins was quickly eaten, Emily was ready to get up and do something, but Hermione stopped her. You also try our craftsmanship. In fact, it is not very appropriate to say this kind of words for the first time in other people's homes, but just over half an hour of chatting makes them very agreeable, as if they have known each other for several years, like old friends. When Hermione walked into the kitchen, Sam and Emily were stunned by Hermione's magic performance. As Hermione waved her wand, some raw materials flew out of the refrigerator, and the surface on the chopping board was plasticized in the air, baked, and finally a delicious creamy apple pie when it fell on a wooden plate. The entire process did not exceed 3 minutes. It's magical. Is this the wizard? Emily asked curiously. Of course. Hermione, who cut the apple pie with a knife, said, if you don't mind, we can help you to treat the wounds on your face after eating. After the magic treatment, I promise that it will be the same. Really? That's great. Emily hadn't spoken yet, and Sam stood up excitedly. At the time I just became a werewolf and couldn't control my emotions. It really is. Speaking of a big man here, as if he was about to cry, Emily also stood up and touched his back gently. After eating the apple pie, Hermione took Emily back for treatment, and Rose Crystal followed. This pure physical injury is very easy for the wizard to heal, and Ryan and Sam are drinking hot cocoa and waiting. Sam seemed a little restless, while Ryan comforted and analyzed the characteristics of the quiet werewolf while launching changes and alchemy rules while the two were close. 7 or 8 minutes later, after Ryan had just obtained the rune model of the quiet werewolf under normal conditions, Hermione walked out with Emily. How do you feel? Sam asked, standing up and walking in front of Emily. It feels very good, Emily said, pulling away the hair blocking her right face. The scars on the right face had completely disappeared, and now the half of the face seemed to have never been injured. After that, the two men kissed passionately for a long time before they separated from each other, and then thanked Ryan for their unstoppable thanks. Perhaps because Emily's face was cured, Sam also opened the conversation box, repeatedly nagging about the guilt of the spoiled appearance of his lover because he did not control his emotions. I have an idea, Ryan said at this time. If you allow me to observe how you become wolves, maybe I can find a solution to your wolfmen's uncontrollable emotions. Rest assured, we just observe. If we want to cast magic, we will definitely get your consent. It's okay. www.mtlnovel.com. I mean, you can start now. Sam waved and said, I know that you are good people today, and I am willing to cooperate with you. And if you can really find a way, it is a good thing for all of our quiet werewolves. Moreover, I don't want to hurt my lover again. After proper consultation, they walked into the forest behind the house. Sam stopped after walking to the place where he could not see the house. How can I cooperate with your observation? I think, let's fight. This is the most convenient way. Lane thought about the proposal. Play a fight? Do you use magic? Sam asked curiously, because he had never seen magic. The vampire battle here is relying on a strong body and super high speed and flexibility, so he is very curious about magic. No, it's close combat. Lane said, a plan that Sam didn't even think of. Chapter 468, Werewolf Guidance. In the fir forest, the wind blew through the trees. Sam looked at Ryan incredulously. Don't you say that you are a wizard from Britain? If I understood correctly, shouldn't you be standing and casting spells remotely? How could it be possible to fight melee at close range? We do cast spells remotely, Lane said, but now to test the combat effectiveness of your werewolves, you have to fight in close quarters, not to mention that we are British wizards. Traditionally, British wizards are called druids and have always possessed the melee ability that nature has given us. He's stepping forward while talking, and the whole person swelled up. Finally a giant panda stood in front of everyone. And I'm not fighting you in human form. This body should be no worse than your giant wolf form, so you can fight with all your strength, Lane said in a ready position. Let's start. Sam nodded and then rushed up as a black giant wolf. In order to avoid accidental injury, Hermione waved her wand and arranged a layer of magic defense around her. The rose crystal leaned tightly on her, ready to provide support in the face of unexpected situations. With a long roar, black hair emerged from Sam's body. His size suddenly became 5 times larger than before, and then he rushed up. Sharp teeth bit directly over Ryan's neck, while trying to slam Ryan with his shoulder blades, trying to lose his weight and fall to the ground. Ryan suddenly discovered that this is the habit of the werewolves after fighting in the same category or after fighting with vampires. Such a move is not effective for Panda in the state of Panda. The bear's neck is short and thick, and his mouth is not big enough. There is no way to put the neck of the panda that Ryan turned into his mouth. The collision is also not good for pandas that are twice the size of giant wolves. Ryan stood up at the moment when the giant wolf and his fierce hand-to-hand combat stood up, and then flicked his right palm against the waist of the giant wolf by gravity. The giant wolf quickly dodged, but still did not completely escape. The thigh part of his right hind leg was directly drawn by Ryan with a bear's paw. This was because the two people were only discussing and Ryan closed his paws. Otherwise, the sharp bear claws are enough to destroy one leg of the giant wolf at a time. However, this black giant wolf is not a real animal, and after a hit, he quickly changed his tactics and began to wander. However, the effect is not good, because for the wolf, if he wants to maintain his speed without being caught by Ryan becoming a panda, then his every attack is just to go away. This kind of attack can't penetrate the panda at all. Defense. And if he wants to launch a more powerful attack, his speed will surely drop. Then Ryan sees the opportunity to fight back. For the obvious difference in body, the injury for injury play was obviously more harmful to the giant wolf. At the same time, the giant wolf prides itself on relying on mobile fighting to have little effect on the giant panda that Lane turned into, because it costs more to turn the wolf around Ryan. He must be the last one to support it. So after more than half an hour, helpless Sam returned to his original shape. Ryan, who had changed back to his original shape at this time, found that Sam had a lot of bruises. "Sorry, sometimes I really can't control the intensity," Ryan said, scratching his hair, looking at himself who was basically not injured. "It's okay. These injuries will disappear in at most 40 minutes. Sam said carelessly. This little injury was nothing to the werewolves. "Oh, you just checked something about the werewolf?" "A lot." Ryan nodded. He now finds that after his strength has improved, this detection no longer requires complicated spells and gestures. Just now he just let the runes spread all over his body, and then smoothly when the giant wolf hit him. "I have collected the information I want. Actually, after you become a werewolf, the whole soul is affected by the wild side of nature, and the way you fight is to use your human side to suppress the wildness brought by the giant wolf soul. But the power of nature is powerful. Sometimes, you cannot guarantee complete control of your wild side. Some accidents will inevitably happen. Fortunately, as a druid, I have a way to solve such problems." "Really? What is that?" Sam asked with wide eyes. He couldn't believe that the young man had solved it in such a short time before the problems that had plagued them for centuries. "It's still the power of nature." Lane thought of the teaching of Aunt Betty the horseman. Nature is not only wild and outgoing. There is also a restrained and soft side. Nature itself is a fusion between these two forces. You need to fully grasp these two aspects. If you can they maintain balance. So as long as you use your humanity to guide slightly, you can accurately use the endless power of nature. Nature's restrained and gentle side. As a Native American, Ryan's theory fits his appetite, because this theory is very consistent with the understanding of nature and the cultural tradition of living in harmony with nature handed down from generation to generation. So under Ryan's guidance, Sam began to learn to feel the power of nature. Although these werewolves found a series of knowledge about DNA to explain why they became werewolves, but they are still extraordinary in this world. Otherwise it is impossible to explain the completely inconsistent energy that their volume increased by more than 5 times when they became werewolves. Unscientific changes of conservation laws. Under the guidance of Ryan, Sam first reached the spiritual world of this world through meditation. This world is as extraordinary as the world of Song of Ice and Fire, so there is only one chaotic spirit world. Fortunately, the spirit world is influenced by the material world, so the place where they are located is full of vitality of nature because of the surrounding forest. "Okay, calm down and feel all this." Ryan exited the spirit world after speaking, found a clean tree stump around him and sat down with Hermione and Rose Crystal to start researching their own things, since the two of them walked through the stone arch. After returning to the world, seeing a higher level of power, they found that they still have a lot to learn. After realizing their own shortcomings, the two people gathered together to study these things as soon as they had free time. The sky slowly darkened. When the wood was completely dark, Sam's shout came, "I succeeded. I felt it." The shout was full of excitement. An arrow stepped in front of Hermione and a face of excitement rushed over Sam's hug. Ryan began to ask what he saw. Through Sam's account, Ryan knew that this time he really felt the existence of the spirit of nature, and also felt the gentle side of nature except wildness. "It's like the mother's arms." Sam described it this way. "I feel that my inner anger has subsided, which makes me able to fight calmly after becoming a wolf. But temporarily this calm state cannot be maintained for a long time." www.mtlnovel.com. Fortunately, the direction has been pointed out. I believe the calm time will be longer and longer in the future. In the following period, Ryan met a large group of werewolves. In order to receive these guys, Ryan built a small wooden house in the woods as their meditation room. Under the guidance of magic spices and Lane, they began to slowly grasp the power of communicating with nature. Naturally, during this time, Ryan finally figured out which world they were in by chatting with the werewolves. Twilight, a standard Mary Sue-style heroine, and a story about a vampire falling in love with his lunch. This is what he thought from the werewolf, that the local vampire would not die in the sun and would only shine like a diamond. But I haven't watched movies and books in my last life. Ryan, who has only seen a part of the film reviews, doesn't know where the story is going now. After recalling that the protagonist and the werewolves are good people, Ryan relaxed and lived on the idea of traveling with Hermione. Anyway, following the protagonists, they will always experience this story. Chapter 469. Prepare for battle. After arranging the incense of the werewolves that day, when Ryan walked out of the room, she saw Hermione standing under a tree and waiting for him. When he saw him come out, he pulled him behind the tree. After standing there, he looked at his eyes seriously and asked, "Did your body change in the process of mastering the rules?" "Surely there will be changes, but this is the power of the rules." Ryan guessed what problem Hermione encountered. It has been more than 2 months since the Stone Arch returned to the world. A series of problems caused by the new power minutes should have found it. These forces will slowly transform our own while mastering, and let us gradually become no longer human. Ryan concealed an important point, that is, not being able to change the rules can change herself. The reason why Hermione changed is because she used to be the core of the way to learn the rules in order to let her survive when she was in the world of death. From the rules of my previous alchemy, she brought the same changes in her body like Ryan. For example, Hermione made a weird expression after listening to Ryan. "You wouldn't say that we will become like mysterious people in the future?" Although I can understand that sacrifices for justice can be understood, it would be too big to sacrifice like a mysterious person. No. Ryan quickly interrupted Hermione's thoughts. The mysterious man has problems because of the power he has mastered, and he has also caused random plastic deformations. The complete power we have mastered will only transform our body extremely slowly, and finally let our body further sublime and let we can perfectly accommodate these forces. So we cannot become noseless or bald in the future, please believe me. So what will the body transform into the end? Hermione's voice began to flutter at this time, and her brain seemed to step on the cloud, because she suddenly thought of a possibility that she couldn't even dare to think before. Eternal life. Ryan pursed her lips, and then decided to tell the truth, because even if he didn't say, Hermione, who was studying the power of life and death recently, will soon discover this truth. The power we studied will lead us to this path. Is the mysterious man's pursuit of things in his life just held in my hands? This is a complete irony. A girl called Pure by the Pure Blood is far ahead of the great Slytherin in this regard. Descendants. Hermione seemed a little excited, and it's no wonder that as she grew older, she began to slowly realize the strict lineage system of the wizards, especially in the past few years, although she was determined to change this unfair system. But the more she understood the intricate relationship in the wizarding world, the more she felt discouraged. But now, she is full of confidence in her own goals, because with enough time, these problems will not be a problem. After a big rock in his heart, Hermione seemed a lot relaxed. She calmed down and said, "It sounds good, and I think we should have enough time to slowly adapt to a long life. But I am still a little worried because I am only 16 years old and I face this problem at this time. It is a bit too early. I am really worried about how to spend that long time in the future." "It doesn't matter." Ryan hugged Hermione. "No matter how long this road is, I will keep walking with you." But this also gave Ryan and Hermione the idea of meeting those vampires. After all, several of these vampires turned into vampires at a young age. You can ask them what it feels like to live long, and it can be regarded as accumulating some experience for the future life. Hermione had never missed it and wanted to study the vampires in this world, and the opportunity came soon. While they were instructing a group of wolves to perceive nature, Jacob came over and told them that a vampire named Victoria was going to kill Bella, and that the vampire was closest to this place in order to fight the Cullen family who protected Bella. The city of Seattle made a new army of vampires ready to come to Foxtown to avenge their boyfriend. For the purpose of preventing vampires from harming humans, the werewolves decided to join forces with the vampires of the Cullen family to stop this vampire army. And Ryan took the opportunity to go to Seattle to catch a few vampires for research. Investigate by the way. So Ryan temporarily bid farewell to the werewolves and took a bus to Seattle. For Hermione, who began to study the power of life and death, the abnormal creatures such as vampires were easily screened from the crowd. At the same time, dollars, pistols, and soul torture will allow them to easily obtain information about vampires from the rogues who walk through the streets. Because the new vampires cannot control themselves, they naturally will not hide themselves in front of people. In this case, Ryan could easily find the vampires' trail. So in 3 days in Seattle, Lane prevented 7 or 8 murders and killed 4 vampires. These vampires are very powerful and move very fast. However, compared to the vampires in the Harry Potter world, they are extremely insensitive to magic, so after using a large range of delayed magic and soul shock, the two easily reached their goals. May find that the vampire was inexplicably missing, and the organizer of the vampire army began to gather people. In order to sell his favor, Ryan didn't plan to clean up the vampires here. After seeing them ready to leave, it was confirmed that no one would be killed again. They returned to Foxtown with loot. When they rushed back to Foxtown, They just met Jasper Hale training the werewolves and vampires. Because only he had the experience of facing a vampire newborn, it was because he had organized a new vampire army when he was young. So he understood how to face these newborn vampires. You need to remember the two most important things. First, don't let their arms touch you. Second, avoid obvious hunting. This is all they have prepared. As long as you attack from the side, don't if they stop and move, they will be in a mess and unable to respond effectively. Jasper Hale, after explaining to the wolves, suddenly turned around and saw Ryan. They appeared in the forest. To his horror, even with his vampire's perception, he didn't find out how these two people brought out a doll here. I have to say that phantom shift is really easy to use. Who are you? He said nervously, and the surrounding vampires, including Bella, also turned their heads. After seeing Ryan, Bella seemed to relax a lot, and she began to introduce Ryan to the vampires around. Welcome www.mtlnovel.com. Thank you for your willingness to take action. The werewolves must have said before what they did in the past 2 days, so the father of the Karen family, Carlisle Karen, sincerely thanked them for their sincere. We delayed their actions and killed a few vampires who were attacking humans. Speaking here, Ryan looked at the vampires standing here. Sure enough, the Karen family is not the kind of vampires who treat humans as food. After hearing this news, there was no dissatisfaction. Even Ryan saw Edward, who looked like Cedric Sr., show a happy expression, so he went on to say, but soon they gathered together and headed towards this side. The three of us couldn't stop so many vampires, so change to meet you as soon as possible. It's okay, you have done a very good job, and it's time for us to play. Carlisle Cullen smiled. Next he talked about his plan. Ryan and Hermione volunteered to take the task of taking Bella around with Edward to spread the scent and close protection. On the one hand, they have flying brooms, and with an ordinary person, mobility is the best here. On the other hand, as wizards, they can have enough magic to protect Bella. At the same time, the smell of Ryan and Hermione as humans can't make those vampire newborns aware of the problem, and they can ensure safety. I wish you a happy journey. In the face of Jacob's unhappy waving goodbye, Ryan and Hermione took Edward and Bella with a flying broom, and then they flew higher and higher, the further away, until you can't see the farewell people on the ground. Chapter 470, Fighting. They turned around in many places for several times, until a cloud of purple and black clouds rushed from the west like a copper wall and an iron wall, making the forest where they were now suddenly darkened. We have to find a place to stop, said Edward sitting behind Ryan. Such a cloud often represents the coming of a snowstorm, and it may not be a good idea to fly into the sky in bad weather conditions. Understood. After communicating with Hermione through the Phoenix Mark, 2 flying brooms carrying 4 people began to descend, and finally they found a leeward side of a rocky cliff. When they fell on their feet, a violent wind swayed the surrounding trees violently, and the crackling sound of the broken trees reached their ears. In this cold wind, as if coming down from an iceberg, there are snowflakes the size of nails. The arrival of the snowstorm made the sky dark, and watching the only ordinary person here, Bella, shuddered. Ryan knew they had to hurry up to set up the tent, otherwise this low-temperature environment would really kill people. Soon, Ryan used magic to set up a small double tent. Then Ryan crawled in on all fours and shouted to the outside, "It may be a little crowded." I prepared it for 2 or 3 people. I thought about staying with 5 people this time. So small a 2-person tent. Bella looked at it incredulously as she got in, because she found herself walking into a Victorian-style 3-person suite. Soon everyone got into the tent, and after lighting the fire in the fireplace, they sat on the sofa drinking hot cocoa together. This is really amazing. Take a sip of the hot and cute tea. Looking around, I know that many vampires also have some special abilities, but they are far less magical than they are. That's nature. This is the power of magic. Ryan said, I set up a magic defense outside, so we can take a good rest tonight. After all, the vampire newborn army will arrive tomorrow. The hostile you said is the vampire is also a vampire who has lived for a long time and has gone through a lot of battles. I don't think that the methods we try to disrupt each other today will have a sufficiently effective result. Of course. Looking at Bella, who seemed nervous, Hermione added, even if there are 10 vampires coming together to siege, we can guarantee that we will be dragged to support. But I think if the other party can really see through our if it is arranged, we should send a large force to haunt our large force, and then attack here with elite. It is impossible to lose in the face of one-on-one battle. So please relax. After chatting for a while, they went back to their rooms to rest. In the room, Hermione finally asked a question she had held for a long time. Why did Edward look so much like Cedric Sr.? It's very normal. Ryan blew his bosom. There may be people who look alike in different worlds. According to the judgment of scientists, there may be 2 people who do not know the same in the same world. Not to mention different worlds. Here Ryan thinks of a video about Hermione's makeup on Station B, where the girl looks really similar to Emma. Just like the one who looks like my Belle. Right? Hermione thought of the trip a few years ago and nodded in recognition of Ryan's statement. This is really a pleasant surprise. Slowly quieted around. The wind was much smaller. Soon everyone in the tent fell asleep. When they woke up in the morning, the weather was very clear, and even the surrounding environment seemed a little too dazzling under the surrounding snow. Ryan stood at the mouth of the tent and looked down at the mountain. As a result, he saw a giant gravel-colored wolf leaping towards them, and Ryan quickly distinguished who was the werewolf. Seth Clearwater. "Good morning," Ryan asked after seeing the giant wolf running to the tent and stopping. "Sam didn't think you were too young to let you fight? This child feels that he should come to protect his friends." Edward walked over to help translate, and Sam agreed with him. "Sam thought it safe to let him stay with you and your fiancé." "Really, thanks Sam for trusting me," Ryan said, and then began to cook breakfast in the campfire outside the tent. Hermione also stepped forward to help, because now she had to prepare breakfast for Seth, an unexpected guest, and the werewolf's appetite was great. In order to allow the werewolves to eat their stomachs before the battle, they directly obtained a processed sheep from other worlds and began to roast with a magic wand. Looked at Bella, who was sitting under the tree there, and Edward was crooked. Hermione, who had previously learned from the werewolf that Bella and Jacob were in love, stared at the two with some unpleasant gaze. "I really don't know how it is possible for one person to like two people at the same time. Do they not think they are confused? A lot of things can't be said too clearly. In this respect, we can't use our own views to entangle others," Ryan said. He remembered that many people in the previous life thought that the book's heroine was on two boats, morally defective. But think about the fact that there are so many popular and boat owners in online novels. From a fair point of view, there is nothing worthy of criticism for a female host who peddles on two boats. Breakfast was quickly prepared with the help of magic. After they were full, they sat for a while. Several people left Bella in the tent and began to arrange their defenses. Although neither Edward nor Seth felt that the enemy could find it here, they were very recognizable for keeping a vigilant attitude towards Ryan. "The battle is over. We can hear the sound of their fighting," suddenly Edward said. At this time Ryan had already arranged a circle of magic defense around the tent. "Stand quietly, they're ready to fight. Both sides are pretending. Our people haven't found Victoria." "Wizards, I think your fears may be true." Edward squatted down after speaking, his arms stretched out slightly in a defensive posture. Seth became the giant wolf, turned and hid in a bush. Ryan and Hermione also pulled out their wands and swords, while Rose Crystal hid a large sword made of amethyst in both hands and hid on a tree. Just as everyone was ready, the two vampires slowly walked over from the small open space of the campsite. www.mtlnovel.com. Lane found that they were a little surprised when they saw themselves and Hermione, but they were sniffing. After sniffing the smell in the air, they continued to walk forward. Maybe they think ordinary humans can't threaten them. After a conversation of no nutrition, Seth rushed out and leapt to the center of the open ground to knock down the vampire newborn Riley to the ground. And Edward danced with Victoria. This is the first time Ryan has seen a fight between vampires. Victoria quickly slides backwards, sliding from side to side, trying to find a hole in his defense line and rushing towards the tent. And Edward quickly blocked her pace and approached her quietly, very attentively. It seems that they will not be able to win or lose in a while. After confirming that there were no other ambushing people around, Ryan and Hermione attacked the vampire newborn with their wands at the same time. All petrochemicals and speed confinement 2 spells accurately hit the newborn vampire Riley, who was suppressed by the body of Seth Giant Wolf. Seth immediately seized the opportunity as soon as he discovered that his opponent was motionless. The vampire was torn to pieces. No, watching her powerful assistant killed, Victoria screamed in a baby-like voice. At this time, she had run to the edge of the open space, and immediately fled to the jungle when she found the assistant killed. Edward didn't expect her to be so decisive. After the reaction came, she had opened a distance of several meters and could not stop her from slipping away again. Looked at the tent behind a few people with a longing look. Victoria ran straight to the woods. Chapter 471, The End of the Fight. Just when Victoria felt that he could escape again, he saw the two weird humans standing in front of the tent smile at him. She immediately felt that the situation was not good, but when she hadn't responded, she saw a purple light flashing in front of her eyes, and then she knew nothing. From Edward's point of view, he saw Victoria fled into the woods and fell directly from the tree. A puppet with a large sword in his hands directly thrust the sword in Victoria's head from the top of Victoria's head until the entire blade fell into her. Inside the head. Then the big sword made of crystal flashed, and the place above Victoria's chest exploded directly, and countless white stone-like fragments flew everywhere. "It's terrible," Edward murmured in his mouth, because he found that the puppet in purple clothes was no different from the stone trunk on the road in the perception of the vampire. If such a powerful puppet had a heart attack, Edward doubted no vampire can block such a fatal blow. The only thing that is thankful for him is that this doll and his companions are good people and stand on their own side. Next is the time to pack up. Ryan waved his wand to bring all the vampire fragments together, and then Hermione used a fire spell to burn the pile of fragments. "Relax, every piece of debris was collected," Ryan said, looking at Edward. The blazing flame floated into the air. It formed a purple smoke column, which looked like a solid sculpture. At the same time, the smell smelled like a burning incense, which made people feel uncomfortable. The smoke was so thick that they felt suffocated by the fire. Several people smiled, and Edward ran again to sprinkle dog food with Bella over there. Seth smiled, revealing a long row of dagger-like teeth, hitting Ryan and Hermione's hands with their noses. It's like people high-fiving each other when celebrating. However, as soon as they relaxed, Seth felt that the Volturi family guard was approaching. As a werewolf, he could only evacuate quickly, while Ryan and Hermione carried Bella and Edward to the open space where the previous large forces fought. "Thank you very much, but once let them discover that there is a human," Edward, who was sitting behind Ryan, said. "Our magic can cover the traces of our existence. You don't have to worry about this. They can't find us hiding." Ryan said, "If it really hit us, we might help." When they returned to the open space, a pile of things was burning on the open space, and the thick purple and black smoke went straight into the sky. The Karen family threw some white fragments in the fire. Surprisingly, there is now another vampire in the open space, a little girl curled up beside the fire, with black hair, thin body, looks like only 15 years old. The pupil is scary bright red. They turned wildly and completely lost control. She surrendered. After discovering Ryan, they looked at themselves. Edward said calmly, "But if she can't control herself, we can only destroy her. You can't train her for such a short period of time, and the people of the Volturi family will arrive soon. The next thing that will greet her is the inevitable death." Ryan became more aware of the smell of Bella, said the grumpy newborn vampire. "In this way, we take her directly away and avoid meeting the people of the Volturi family directly." "Okay. But can you really control her?" "Although these newborns are inexperienced, their strength is the strongest at this time," Carlyle said with some concern, but after seeing Lane changing this vampire newborn when he was motionless like a stone carving, he let go of his uneasiness. Soon Ryan and Hermione dragged the vampire newborn on the broom and flew into the forest. Only Rose Crystal pretended to be an ordinary doll for the safety of all people and let Bella hug her chest. "It's a pleasure to save her, because she is still so young. She doesn't have any human life on her hand, and she can even suppress her bloodthirsty instinct to show a little kindness. Such a creature is very valuable for saving," Hermione said on the way. "How can you stop her from attacking others?" "It's very simple, just meditation," Lane replied. "We can try to make the vampire feel nature, so this should suppress her bloodthirsty." They took the vampire out of the quieter werewolf territory, and then found a forest camping camp. Sam, who was the werewolf leader, came to see him. He didn't like the vampires being so close to them. So many busy people acquiesced in this matter, just warned them not to let vampires enter their territory. Soon after, Rose Crystal returned. She told Ryan that everything was normal there, but the Volturi family asked Bella to be converted into a vampire as soon as possible. For a while, Ryan and Hermione trained the vampire newborn while studying the secrets of the vampire werewolf. In the exchange, they learned that the girl's name was Bree. Training is very effective. After only a week of training, Bree learned how to control his urge to blood. Of course, Ryan feels that there is also dragon blood fruit. This special fruit looks like a tomato, but the juice inside is a blood-like liquid containing a trace of dragon blood energy. The earliest Ryan asked Dave to help after returning from the radiation world. The original intention was to find enough blood sources for blood transfusions for the wounded soldiers. But as he mastered more and more power later, Ryan tried to cultivate a plant that could produce dragon blood. However, this attempt failed, and plants that can grow real dragon blood fruits can indeed be cultivated, but the planting cost of this new variety plant is much higher than the cost of dragon blood. So after continuous breeding, Ryan finally cultivated the existing new plant with only a little dragon blood power, and the juice inside can be used for the addition of certain potions to improve the performance of these potions. The first bite to eat after Bori became a vampire was dragon blood fruit. She said she was not enough after just eating one. What's even more surprising is that since then, both animal blood and human blood have reduced a lot of her attraction. www.mtlnovel.com. According to her original words, if the dragon blood fruit is made by Michelin Samsung chef in the case of a delicious meal, most of the human blood is equivalent to the common dishes of ordinary people, and the animal blood is simply bread. So in the later days, while learning to master his body thoroughly, Bree also learned how to cultivate dragon's blood. Fortunately, Ryan greatly weakened the effect of dragon blood fruit, so that such fruits can be cultivated normally in this world lacking in extraordinary power. But this thing also let Ryan know why Bella's blood can be so attractive to vampires. After all, Bella can be immune to other vampire attacks before becoming a vampire. After becoming a vampire, she immediately became one of the most powerful vampires. Then her blood must contain more energy than ordinary people's blood. In this case, it is inevitable to have a fatal temptation for vampires. The dragon's blood fruit also contains enough energy to attract vampires. Quiet werewolves still came from time to learn the skills of communicating with nature under Sam's leadership, and at the same time expressed their sincere admiration for Ryan to make a vampire's newborn no longer aggressive in such a short period of time. It's just that they didn't see Jacob in the werewolf who came and sat frequently. He is injured here and needs time to heal. Seth, the youngest werewolf, pointed to his heart and told Ryan. Jacob told her to give up to avoid Bella's embarrassment. Love. Well, if this story is summed up, it is licking the dog and licking it to the end. What a sad story. Chapter 472. Sudden change. A few more days later, while Ryan watched Bree practice fighting with Hermione, who became a lynx, the human-shaped Seth suddenly jumped out of the forest that belonged to the Quirate, and Ryan saw him on the back carrying a school bag. He presented a letter to Ryan when he came to him. Ryan waited for Hermione to gather and opened the envelope. This letter has an ivory envelope, inside which is a thick and gorgeous card, and a stationery transcribed in black ink. This was written by Edward and invited Ryan, Hermione, Rose Crystal and Bree to attend their wedding ceremony together. "We will go when the time comes," Seth said. "Edward also invited us, but Jacob will not go. I think this lover is married, the groom is not. My mood must be uncomfortable." "Okay. You shouldn't consider this for your age at the moment." Ryan rubbed his hair. "You're not an adult yet." After asking Seth to send a letter to Edward that several of them would attend the wedding, they started to prepare things related to the wedding. At this time, they discovered that they did not have a suitable dress. After all, this wedding will invite a large group of ordinary people, and it is a little too weird to go to the wedding in the gowns of the wizards. Fortunately, this place is equipped with an internet because of the Aboriginal Reserve area, so Ryan simply connected the computer to the internet and asked the three ladies present to choose dresses. After they selected the style, Ryan would send these pictures to the Lord of the Rings River Valley City in the middle, and then contact the elf tailors to make their favorite dress. On the day of Edward's wedding, Ryan and the werewolf set off together. Hermione chose a minimalist blue dress, which looks good with Ryan's dark blue suit. The wedding hall is very beautifully decorated, attracted by the garlands that fill the corners of the house. These garlands are woven by thousands of white flowers, and long white ribbons hang from the garlands. Rows of satin-covered chairs are placed under the garland. From the number of chairs, it can be seen that this wedding should be very lively. "It's beautiful." Ryan gave a very admirable admiration. After entering the door, they were directly led to their seats by the concierge. Rose Crystal had no seats, so she was held in the arms by Bree. When the newcomer took the oath, Hermione took Ryan's hand, and Ryan leaned towards her. In short, this wedding is as perfect as the wedding in dreams. At the party after the wedding, Jacob also rushed to dance with the bride to say goodbye to this unforgettable love without ending. "This wedding looks really great," Hermione said on the way back. "Our future wedding will be great too," Ryan replied. After returning to their temporary residence, Hermione had been trying to use the power of death to imitate the vampires of this world for the next half-month. The research has achieved staged success, and she can greatly strengthen her physical strength and physical quality by initiating the power of death to infiltrate her body. However, she is still alive, and she can't keep this state for more than 10 minutes each time, otherwise she will hurt herself. Ryan has been analyzing the werewolves of this world in addition to helping Hermione practice this time. After dissecting the corpses of the werewolves of Harry Potter and detailed understanding of the werewolves of this world, he feels that he should be able to solve some of those hairy little problems. As the two of them counted the harvest and were ready to return to their world, Buri, who had been in contact with the Karen family, came back. After all, Ryan and Hermione are not likely to live in this world, so considering the life of their first student in the future, the two have always encouraged Bree and the Karen family to have more contacts. During this time, Bree will go to Karen's house every morning and will not come back until evening. Follow these kind of vampires to learn what you should master after becoming a vampire. It's just that Bree ran nervously at noon today. Fortunately, it's a cloudy day, so I don't have to worry about revealing her vampire status. "What happened? Why do you look so nervous?" Hermione asked concerned. As an official student of hers, Hermione still values Bree. The Karen family had an accident. Bree brought shocking news as soon as he opened his mouth. Bella is pregnant. They have been married for only 2 weeks. Edward is pretty good. Ryan grinned. But the birth of a new life should be a good thing. "Why do you look so nervous now?" "Because vampires are theoretically impossible to have offspring," Bree explained to Ryan. This is not a good sign. The important thing is that Bella looks wrong. "Will the dead make a child alive?" Hermione became interested in this matter, and she looked at Ryan with eager eyes. "Maybe I can feel the key to the transition between life and death. So, it doesn't matter if you go back later." Ryan immediately decided to change the itinerary to satisfy Hermione's wish, because this opportunity is not common. Ryan felt that this incident might have allowed Hermione to take her power to a higher level. Moreover, he is also very curious about this matter. For the wizards who are looking for power, the pursuit of new knowledge is almost like their instinct. Through the phantom shift, Ryan and Hermione appeared at the door of the Cullen house in an instant. The only disadvantage of this travel method is that you can only teleport to the place you have been to. Fortunately, they have been there several times before. After knocking on the door, Carlisle opened the door for them, and the doctor's expression looked serious. He brought Ryan and them to the living room and found that the other 6 members of the family were standing around a sofa. The expression on everyone's face revealed that the current situation was not optimistic. They stepped forward and found that Bella was sitting on the sofa. The whole person looked a little haggard, and his face was not very good looking. Her abdomen bulged slightly, and she could directly see signs of pregnancy. "This is not normal," Hermione said in surprise. She was a dentist who knew a lot of things. "It takes 4 months for normal humans to be pregnant." "What is that in Bella's belly?" "That's why we are here today." www.mtlnovel.com. Ryan said that he walked to the patient lying on a couch and then pulled out his wand. As a large number of silver runes dropped, Ryan frowned, because he found that the fetus in Bella's belly had too much demand for nutrients, which is simply not available to humans. Interestingly, this new life should be a combination of humans and vampires. That is to say, they created a new immortal creature with such a little extraordinary power. It is a pity that this new creature just balances the power of life and death, but does not integrate them. But this is also very normal, and powerful immortal creatures that can really merge life and death cannot appear in this world of lack of extraordinary power. "How is Bella?" Alice with short black hair asked. "The situation is not good." Watching the last rune returned from the feedback was received in the wand, Hermione stepped forward and continued to investigate. After casting the spell, Ryan turned to look at the vampires of the Karen family and said, "The core problem is that you are trying to make an immortal creature an immortal creature. This new life is too much for the mother." Just said that a figure broke in here, and originally Jacob wanted to ask Ryan to learn meditation today. It turned out that Ryan did not get the news of Bella's accident from the housekeeper Bree, so he came over in the shortest time. "Can we take this monster out of her belly? Otherwise, Bella will die soon after going on like this." After listening to Ryan's test results, he shouted loudly in the living room, his eyes full of anxiety. Look. Chapter 473, Newborn. "Bella doesn't allow us to do this. It's all because of my fault," Edward said in an extremely tired voice after hearing Jacob's suppressed roar. Jacob felt helpless after hearing the latter, because such a thing is indeed like Bella can do. "More than that," Edward said, "she refused to talk to me on the way back. I thought she was angry with me because I couldn't hear her inner voice. But in the end she ran straight to Rosalie. I realized that she felt this was wrong from the beginning, and worried that I asked her to kill her fetus." "Why don't you use some coercion? It shouldn't be difficult to control an ordinary human with your power." Jacob said, "You vampires are really stupid. Bella is just an ordinary person." "Do you think I haven't thought about it?" Edward said with a look of depression. "But now Rosalie and Emmett are on Bella's side, and Carlisle can't help me against them in this matter. It's right not to take coercion." At this time, the red tentacles that Hermione just put on Bella to detect her condition were also removed. After quick communication through the Phoenix seal, Ryan interrupted the conversation between Edward and Jacob. "The new life in Bella's belly is already integrated with Bella, and damaging either of the two before this little life will cause both to be damaged at the same time. That means if you take it out, Bella will also. It is impossible to survive." "Are you sure, wizard?" Carlisle asked cautiously. "We have also tried to examine the fetus before, but the problem is that neither ultrasound nor puncture can detect the condition of the baby." Alice's prediction and Edward's emotional perception are also unsuccessful. "This is why we couldn't do it before." "One of the reasons." "Of course," Hermione replied. "We crossed the line between life and death, and then came back." "In this regard, I can be sure that at least in this world, few people are stronger than us in the study of the power of life and death." "What should I do?" "I can see that as it develops now, Bella can't support the birth of the baby in his stomach," Edward said nervously, and beside him, Jacob also looked with the same nervous look with Ryan. "The best way is to replenish energy," Ryan said. "The only way. You need to know that even an extremely weak immortal can grow up with energy that is not supported by ordinary human mothers unless you can supplement them with adequate nutrition from the outside world." "We tried it," said Dr. Carlisle, tired. "We thought about that very early, but the fetus prevented her from receiving food, and her body rejected any form of nutritional supply. I tried to deliver her nutrition by intravenous injection, but it didn't seem to make her look better." "We don't have the potions." Ryan looked and explained to Hermione quickly. "The potions we prepared in advance are basically prepared for ourselves. Bella, who is an ordinary person, is estimated to be unable to bear these potions. The power contained. Not to mention that she is pregnant now, it is too dangerous to use potions of different supernatural power systems in her own fragile situation. If she is pregnant with a vampire, will the dragon blood fruit be useful?" Ryan suddenly heard something after hearing Hermione's words. "Dragon blood fruit? What is that?" Dr. Carlisle frowned and asked Ryan to think that Bree would tell the Karen family of the news of the dragon blood fruit. But now it seems that she did not disclose the matter. Maybe Bree thinks this is the secret of Ryan and they should hide this news. And vampires are not 3 meals a day, so if they don't eat together, they will naturally not reveal the news. "That's a special plant I cultivated," Ryan said briefly and finally added, "Bree's evaluation of the fruit of this plant is higher than human blood. I believe it can supplement the fetus enough nutrition. On the other hand, at least the juice is easier for Bella, who is now human." After taking out a bottle of dragon fruit juice and handing it to Carlisle, Carlisle poured the juice to everyone in the Karen family. After drinking these liquids, everyone gave a high opinion of them. Dr. Carlisle feels that this juice will help them, vegetarian vampires, get rid of the temptation of human blood, because after drinking this juice, they find that the attractiveness of human blood will be reduced a lot. Even Spartan admits that ordinary human blood doesn't have this juice. After everyone's confirmation, a glass of freshly squeezed dragon blood juice was handed to Bella. They were still discussing whether to heat or put some sugar, but Bella took the glass of juice directly. "Let me try it first." After smelling the smell, I can feel that the baby in my stomach seems to be craving this thing. Since Bella said so, everyone watched her drink a whole bottle of juice. It may be that watching this is just fruit juice, so there is not much psychological pressure even with Bella. It's weird, I can smell blood. But why can I think it's delicious? After drinking, Bella put the empty glass on the coffee table and said something weird. But everyone in the living room looked relieved, because it showed that they had guessed correctly and that the child in Bella's stomach should need these things. Sure enough, a few minutes after drinking the juice, her waxy cheeks began to return to blood. Don't need much help from others. At the same time her breathing became smoother. Through magic testing, Ryan can confirm that her life reaction is much stronger than before. After making sure that Bella was fine, Jacob was ready to leave. Ryan stepped up and stopped him, who looked a little melancholic, on the porch. "I know what you are worried about. But what I can tell you is that the child in Bella's belly is not a pure vampire. You don't have to worry about the birth of the bloodthirsty witch. Of course, to ensure this, before the child was born I will stay here forever. If it were really a bloodthirsty witch, I would kill him, and I can guarantee that the vampires of the Karen family cannot stop my movements. I understand that this matter will be kept secret in the tribe temporarily. www.mtlnovel.com. I don't want war in this place either." Jacob nodded and then started his car and left. Lean also said this to the Karen family. This distance makes it easy to hear what Ryan is saying as a vampire. However, the Karen family did not oppose Ryan. They also knew the dangers of bloodthirsty witch. The next few days, Ryan and Hermione took turns to observe the fetus in Bella's belly. This strange life that combined life and death made them harvest a lot of valuable information. Of course, they also tried to use magic to relieve the pain of Bella, the mother of life. "He is too active." This is what Hermione told the people of the Karen family after painlessly cutting the rib on the other side of Bella. Because the child has insufficient development space, a rib was already given by the fetus before Hermione came. Broken. Bella's body is too weak in view of her fever, sweating, and Cold War. I can at best use natural magic to soothe her a little so that she doesn't feel so painful, but something like an analgesic anesthetic can't be used by her now. It's much better now, I thank you for Bella, Alice said. But the situation is getting worse in the next few days. According to the observation of Ryan and Hermione, the fetal development is quite healthy. But Bella, the mother, is getting worse. 3 days later, at least 1/3 of Bella's bones were broken, and they could not be repaired, otherwise the fetus would be crushed again. Finally, one day before the expected date, Bella was born prematurely when the fetus broke her another bone. Chapter 474, and Travel. How is the situation now? Ryan, who was called by Hermione with the Phoenix mark, asked Hermione. "I am studying the fetal data collected yesterday, and you will call me directly." People have started first aid. It's a premature birth. Just as they walked into the living room, Ryan heard a dying cry from the floor, and the rose crystal coming with Ryan subconsciously grabbed Ryan's trouser legs. "Are you human women having such terrible births?" "No. This is just a special case," Ryan said as she walked upstairs with them. Also as a woman, Hermione had a special empathy for Bella, who was suffering from childbearing pain, and she now also pursed her lips tightly. When they came to the entrance of the temporary ward of the library renovation, they saw Bella cramping on the bed like a big fish out of the water, and at the same time they could hear the sound of bone fracture coming from Bella in their ears. To make matters worse, Rosalie was a little crazy by Bella's massive bleeding. Quickly imprisoned, Ryan pushed open the door to control Rosalie with magic, and then let Alice help take Rosalie out. Then I asked Dr. Carlyle, who hosted the overall situation here. "What can I do for you?" "The fetus is covered with a layer of vampire skin. We must open it quickly," Carlyle said, sweaty, his golden eyes full of anxiety. "Rose Crystal." "Understood." After nodding her head, Rose Crystal immediately flew out and stood beside Bella, holding the amethyst in her hands to form the great sword. Hermione also waved her wand and directed the blood on the ground to fix the struggling Bella there. "Please rest assured." After looking at the Karen family with the same color as her own eyes with amber eyes, she swiped Bella's stomach with her sword. After throwing the sword into a spot of light, he reached out and reached down to hug the baby up to his chest. "Very beautiful baby girl." Rose Crystal raised the baby to Bella. At the same time Hermione and Ryan hurried over to release the magic to maintain Bella's life, while the two quickly checked the newborn baby with the magic. The good news is that this baby has a living part. She can't become a bloodthirsty witch. "It's time." Ryan shook his head to Edward. Edward immediately pulled a tube of his venom from the drawer on the bedside. The syringe pierced Bella's heart. Following the whole day, Bella started the transition from human to vampire. Ryan and Hermione have been there, using magic to observe the transformation of these two completely different creatures. From this transformation, Ryan can feel the power of life and death change, which also brings him closer to the rules of change. The Karen family did not prevent Ryan from their observation. because the magical observation by the wizards at this time was the most accurate. And they don't think there is anything that needs to be kept secret from the transformation of humans into vampires. Before Bella's conversion ended, Jacob also came once. But when he saw the newly born little boy at first glance, the whole person seemed to be attracted. Later, when he came to visit Bella, Ryan and they knew that the newborn Renesmee was now Jacob's brand lover. Ryan was not shocked by the godlike operation of licking the dog and finally became son-in-law. Fortunately, Sam gave up the hostile idea after learning that the newborn was Jacob's branded lover, making the tragedy agreement between the werewolves and vampires in the region unprecedented. Stable. After Bella woke up, they returned to the temporary house because the large amount of data collected needs to be sorted out as quickly as possible, especially the process of changing from human to vampire has improved Ryan's previous technology for changing between different species of werewolves, and also further optimized this technology in different worlds. Adaptability. 2 weeks later, Ryan and they finally got all the knowledge gained in this world. In addition to let them understand the rules one step further. What made Ryan feel happiest was that he had promised Lupin what he could do now. So Ryan went to say goodbye to the vampires and the wolves. When they greeted the werewolves to meet the Karen family, they just saw their family grow dragon fruit in the greenhouse, and Bree was there to guide them. Like the prearranged plan, Bree will live with the Karen family in the future. This is a good home for her, and the Karen family welcomes new members like her. I think we might become a real vegetarian vampire, Carlisle said with a smile. Of course, this is a good thing. Attentive Hermione found that they seemed to have something in mind while chatting with Alice. After repeated inquiries, they realized that they had hidden Renesmee's news, but the paper could not catch the fire. The Karen family is worried that the Volturi family will discover the presence of Renesmee. Is this? Ryan thought for a moment and said, after we leave, I will let Rose Crystal go to the house we lived in every few days to take a look. If something is wrong, you can write a letter there directly. I will definitely see this letter and come over within 3 days. So thank you so much. Carlisle looked a lot easier. Through the werewolves, the Karen family realized how powerful the two wizards were. In the previous discussion, the 8 werewolves were all controlled by Lane within 5 minutes. At this level, it is impossible for the Karen family to be the opponent of Ryan. It is undoubtedly a very gratifying thing to have such a strong comrade in the future possible war, because of getting along before and helping the two races. After they knew Ryan Hermione's hobby of pursuing knowledge, both the werewolf and the vampire sent them a lot of things, such as the hair of the werewolf and the venom of the vampire. At the same time also cooperated with them to complete a lot of research. This made them gain a lot. After they had sorted everything, they locked the door of the wooden house where they lived in the world and returned to the Wanji grocery store. Probably because Ryan didn't know most of the plot at this time, so many times it didn't change much of the plot. The system only gave 30 offset points for this trip. But Ryan didn't have much regret. Let us not say how much important knowledge they gained can improve their own strength. At least promised that Lupin's thing can be solved in such a short time is already a very worthy celebration for them. After all, a wizard born as a mule. www.mtlnovel.com. It is difficult to get the right to speak in the world of the wizard without the help of a pure-blood wizard who has so many complicated relationships. And Ryan didn't want to take strong measures against wizards who hadn't committed crimes, and didn't want to be like Voldemort. In this case, a force that you can master is very important. Reading is a preparation, but the students need enough time to grow up. Before that, the only people who could be supporters were the reliable hemp-breed wizards in the store, and only the werewolves that had been marginalized by society were able to be drawn in. This is why Ryan invested so much energy this time to study the werewolves in Twilight. Fortunately, his investment has gained enough to allow him to truly change these werewolves. Let's write a letter to Norway now, Lane suggested at the lunch table after returning to the manor. I think I can solve the hairy little problem on the werewolves. Are you sure there is no problem? Although they are all werewolves, there should be a little difference. Hermione is still relatively real, and she raised her own concerns about Ryan's plan. If you don't practice this kind of thing, you don't know what the final conclusion is. If you can't perfect the deduction, you can't really be foolproof. But now I can at least guarantee that even if it is not successful, it will not be worse than it is now. Ryan looked at Hermione's eyes, said seriously, of course, we will make clear the risks of doing this in the letter. Now that the werewolves are our comrades, we can't deceive them in this regard. Chapter 475, Lupin's Visit. After Hermione wrote a letter to bring the Alhermes to Norway, they heard the electric bell installed at the door of the yard being ringed as soon as they had dinner the next morning. I don't seem to tell anyone about the location of this new home. It's an independent manor with no neighbors. Why is there someone visiting here so early? Wouldn't it be a salesman? Ryan went out to open the door while thinking, and Hermione at this time, they were packing up the breakfast utensils. She has recently become interested in housework magic, so she tries to use magic to do housework in this house with a magic barrier whenever possible. Why did you come so early? Ryan walked to the gate of the wrought iron gate and found out that Lupin was wearing a slightly old-fashioned plaid suit, which surprised Ryan because the Owl was released last night. Considering the time to flight to Norway, this is equivalent to Lupin coming directly after receiving the letter early in the morning. Have you eaten breakfast? If I didn't eat it, I'll prepare it for you. I received your letter when I woke up, and hurriedly ate a sandwich and hurried over. So don't bother you. Lupin walked in after Ryan opened the iron gate, and seemed to do his favorite job and help the werewolf friends. Gave him a double harvest in spirit and material. He seemed to be more uplifted than he was when he was a professor. Ryan also found that the plaid suit he was wearing was a bit old-fashioned, but the material was very good. This shows from the side that after finding a suitable job with an economic foundation, Lupin is not the kind of ascetic who will not enjoy life. Are you talking about the truth? Did you find a way to treat werewolves? Lupin asked repeatedly on the way through the yard, which was not like he usually did. However, Ryan can understand Lupin's approach. The problems in him have affected his first half of his life. Basically, all the disasters that happened to him are caused by this. Now the hope of seeing change will naturally be very exciting. Yes, I got some enlightenment from this engagement travel, Ryan said, but fortunately, the magic world of the heaven and the magic world in Europe are not much connected, providing Lupin with plenty of imagination. Yeah, that mysterious land. Lupin also made a leisurely expression. Listened to Professor Dumbledore saying that they are very open to foreign scholars, but unfortunately their writing and civilization have completely hindered our channels of learning their knowledge. Hearing this sentence, Ryan could only smile and shrugged. In the world of Harry Potter, the whole of Europe is a set of the same magic system, but it has its own characteristics with the different areas of transmission. Even the Near East and North Africa regions close to them have the same origins as American magic, influenced by their culture. But the magic system of the Celestial Empire was another set of things from the beginning. If it is not a thorough grasp of the local culture, it is difficult for ordinary people to understand those things. Ryan also relied on a series of things learned from Jushu to understand the pile of magic books written in classical Chinese. Hermione was purely relying on the basics of the classical Chinese text that was previously instilled in her by duck feeding, and asked Ryan through the Phoenix Seal anytime and anywhere to understand some of the books. After entering the room, Hermione had prepared tea for everyone on the coffee table in the living room. Lupin sat on the sofa, looked at the surrounding furnishings, and said, "Your new home looks very good. It really feels like a home." "Thank you for the compliment." Hermione nodded with a smile. She felt very happy that she had been recognized for the housework she had done before. After chatting for a while, they went straight to the topic. "Professor Lupin," Hermione said, "actually, the results of our research will not make the werewolf a human again." Here, Hermione paused and looked at Lupin. Lupin did not show any impatience. Look, but listen carefully. Because he knew Ryan and Hermione were reliable people, he would never come to inform him if he did not really come up with a solution to the problem. "It doesn't matter," Lupin said. "After all, the werewolf has existed for more than 3,000 years, and so many great wizards in history have not been able to solve this problem. So in my heart, no matter what you can do, I am grateful. For all these years, only you are willing to devote yourself to the study of werewolves. Even if your research results are only a little bit of progress for us, we are grateful." "It's not just a little bit of progress," Lane said. "We are now farther away than anyone who is alive in the area of werewolf research. Now we are confident that the werewolves can still maintain their consciousness in the form of wolves, remove their ability to spread." "What? Is this true?" Lupin stood up excitedly and took the teacup on the tray beside him to the ground. Fortunately, Ryan caught the cup with a wave of his hand. "It's true." Hermione nodded seriously. "We came to you because we already had enough confidence to complete this matter. The only problem now is that no matter how much simulation and how to deduce the final, it still needs actual operation. Because it is the first time we do, we are not 100% sure of success." "That's why you said in the letter that this is a dangerous method?" Hermione took her before Lupin's voice fell. "I know the reason why you wrote that letter was to let me help you find a volunteer to do research with you, so I came. After all, they chose me as their leader, so at this moment, I must stand up out." "Okay." After facing Lupin for a few seconds, Ryan sighed helplessly, and then took him to the laboratory. It was expected that Lupin could become the leader of the werewolves. First of all, the werewolves were assembled by Lupin. With the help of Lupin, the wolf talents had a formal job and stable residence, and the most basic dignity of a smart creature. Second, from being a senior at a young age to being a teacher at Hogwarts a few years ago, all of this shows that Lupin itself is excellent. As a place where the powerful world respects the magic world, it is normal for those werewolves to push Lupin as their leader. Lupin himself has a strong sense of justice and a spirit of sacrifice. In this case, he chose the first to receive treatment as a matter of course. After seeing that kind of determination from his eyes, www.mplnovel.com, Ryan gave up his intention to persuade him. The laboratory was set up 155 meters underground in the garage next to it. It was before they were dug out by magic. The entire laboratory was built according to the sturdiness of the refuge of the radiation world, and after it was built, they set up a lot of defensive magic. The entire laboratory can be seen as a pocket refuge with independent energy and internal circulation devices. 10 people can live underground for more than 5 years. This is, after following Ryan, they stepped into the elevator hidden in the wall and reached the laboratory. Lupin opened his mouth in amazement. What appeared in front of him was a very clean house. I don't know where the white light source was hiding. The whole house very bright but not dazzling. There are 3 doors in the room. One door facing the elevator exit. The other 2 doors are on the left and right walls. This is the dressing room. You go to the dressing room on the left to put on the patient's suit. Hermione and I went to the right to change our work clothes and gather here for a while, Ryan said and pulled Hermione away. Lupin walked into the other room. After opening the door, he found that the room was a small cloakroom. After opening the only metal wardrobe in the cloakroom, he soon saw a blue suit with underwear in it. When he changed his clothes, he found that the suit was a little bigger, so he used a wand to make it too long. He only went out after the cuffs and trouser legs were shortened. Ryan and Hermione, who had put on a white coat at this time, were waiting for him in the antechamber just now. After seeing him out, they took him to the laboratory.